All right, good evening, everyone. We got a full house. It's nice to see people. So why don't we get started? We're going to do I'm going to do a call to order. Let's go. Let's do a pledge. Call stand. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So given we have a full house and that we really want to hear people, I'm going to try to move some things along. Just in terms of roll call, I think I see everybody, so that'll do for roll call. I see our representative, our city attorney. Is there anyone on the line as well for the city?
We have Central Hudson on the line.
Okay. All right. So let's do that. Let's go first to a community segment. What we're doing here is Central Hudson is here to talk to us about some billing issues. The council may have some questions. All right, so let's do that first.
So, Mayor, we've invited Carrie Pratt, the district director from Central Hudson Gas and Electric. And Carrie, thank you for making time to join us this evening. Could you please introduce the members of your team?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I have John Resurgent here. He's from our corporate communications, and Victor Narkai. He's the my boss, senior director at Central Hudson for new business. I think we were waiting for a couple other people, weren't we, John? Or
yes, we also have Wendy Indramil. She's our director of customer contact at Central Hudson, and joining us in just a couple of minutes will be Eileen Lamorello. She's manager of customer experience. And myself, John Surgeon, I'm media relations director for Central Hudson.
Okay.
And should we begin, or
please
does the
do.
council have questions for us?
Nope. Why don't you, talk for a few minutes, and then if we have questions, we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having us. And we were originally scheduled to speak with you a couple of weeks ago, but we are in the midst of service restoration following that devastating ice storm. So thank you to the City Council for allowing us to postpone this meeting. So as I understand it, the City of Beacon is looking to address three issues. One is the misinformation that the CCA that the city is enrolled in is causing the billing issues, and we can tell you that that is not the case. The billing issues are unfortunately on our end, but we've made some tremendous progress in addressing these billing issues, and I'll go more into that. But the CCA itself is not the cause of the billing issues that the city residents are seeing. And secondly are the billing issues themselves. And then there is a third issue that I'd like to discuss, and that is of energy supply prices, what's happening in the marketplace to the cost of energy, whether it be electricity, natural gas, heating oil, propane, gasoline. We're seeing some pretty significant impacts in the cost of energy, not just here in the Hudson Valley, but across the country, and it's actually a global problem. So let me start with the billing issues. Some of you may already understand or recognize that Central Hudson is replacing a legacy customer information system that's more than 40 years old with a modern, up-to-date platform. And the reason we're doing this is because our old system is unable to accommodate the many energy supply options that are available to our customers nowadays. For example, the CCAs, solar, net metering, community solar. These are all the types of energy options that our customers can take advantage of, but our old system simply could not accommodate that kind of billing. And going into the future, as we transition our energy system into a low carbon system, we expect more energy options to be available to our customers, and we need a smarter platform to handle this. Unfortunately, we have run into some challenges as we transition into this new billing system. Not unexpected. We were, told that this would not necessarily be completely seamless. And to be honest, the vast majority of our customers are not experiencing billing problems. Most of our customers are not affected by this transition, but a fairly large segment is. And we've been working through this by working with our programming folks, with our implementation consultants. We've increased staffing in our contact center with extended hours, and we've made some very good headway in terms of some of the billing issues we're seeing. And we continue to work with our customers one-on-one every day to address the billing issues that they may still have. But one of the problems that we had from the outset was billing for our customers who receive energy supply from a third party. And for the city of Beacon, as a CCA, many residents are receiving energy from a third party. So that had initially caused some billing problems, particularly with Beacon. I'm happy to say that those issues are mostly resolved. There are just a few exceptions left that we feel we'll be able to handle by mid-month, by mid-March. And I think going forward, it's not going to be the issue that it was. And one of the ongoing issues we're having right now is with our customers who either have solar panels on their homes or buildings and are net metering, and those who have enrolled in community solar. And on the community solar side, we finally have a handle on some of the issues that we're having with the billing system there, and we expect that to be resolved. We expect that to be resolved by the end of this month. I think we should have billing caught up by the end of the month. I'm sorry, there was some echo there, but I think we got that fixed. And I lost my place. I'm sorry. Hold on just one moment. Okay. We have, in order to help those customers who still have billing issues, we've expanded, again, the number of people who are answering the phones and working with our customers. We're also using social media to work with our customers. If we see something on social media where someone has a problem or is reporting a problem with their bill, we'll reach out to them with a private message and we'll work through their problem. So that's actually been a very effective way for us to work with our customers, but also, anyone who has ongoing issues, they can call us at our 452-2700. We have a chat option on our website that works very well, and we have an email function. You can send in your request via email, but we are committed to addressing each and every customer's billing issue, and we do expect that the vast majority of the problems that we're experiencing now should be all resolved before spring. So we're working very hard to resolve this. We know that this is a key frustration point for our customers. This is not how we want to be serving our customers. This is not Central Hudson. So we're going to, we do anticipate getting back to our regular service, customer service levels in very short order. And we appreciate our customers' patience as we've worked through this issue through the fall and now winter. Again, this has been a challenge for all of us, but at the end, we're going to have a better system that's going to be able to do what we need to do as we move forward into this new energy realm that's taking place across the world. The next issue I wanted to talk about are energy prices. And we've seen some significant spike in the spike in the cost of energy across the board. And unfortunately, that's affecting our customers. And let me talk a little bit about how our bill is designed so that there's an understanding of what people are seeing. utility bills are divided into three segments, essentially. It's taxes and fees, delivery charges, and supply charges. And taxes and fees are imposed by New York State. Delivery charges are the cost for Central Hudson to maintain and operate the electric and gas infrastructure and provide a host of other utility services. And these are regulated by New York State, and they don't change. They're not variable. And supply charges are for the energy itself. And that represents the electricity and natural gas that we buy on the market on behalf of our customers. And our customers pay the same price for energy supply as Central Hudson does. You know, just as a reminder, Central Hudson does not own power plants. We're not a supplier of natural gas. We purchase these commodities by other suppliers on behalf of our customers. And these costs are the same as what our customers pay. So we'll pay the suppliers, and then our customers will pay whatever cost it was that we purchased the energy for. And we're seeing significant increases in the price for a number of reasons. I think that, you know, we're seeing this on the news every day, but there's an increase in demand for energy as the economy begins to recover. We've had a colder than normal winter, which has, you know, impacted the amount of energy that our customers use. And when demand for energy goes up, the market price goes up as well. And we're seeing some global effects, you know, particularly what's taking place between Russia and Ukraine, and this is having a major impact on global energy prices. And you might think, well, why would something over there affect what's happening here? There is a critical shortage of energy in Europe, and much of that is being fulfilled by the United States. So there's a big demand for our energy, and in fact, we are shipping liquefied natural gas to Europe right now to help make up for that shortfall. You know, Russia provides a significant portion of energy to Europe, and just the threat of conflict over there has brought worries of that continued supply into Europe. And so the United States and other countries are becoming the substitute supply chain for energy, and that's driving prices up here. Back in the fall of 2021, the U.S. Department of Energy indicated that energy prices would likely go up this winter, and we provided notification that could be the case. And it is playing out, and we've seen higher energy prices this winter as compared to last winter. But now with this recent spike, we've really seen a big increase. Now, we don't expect the energy prices to remain as high as they are now in the long run. But if the conflict continues in Europe, we may see elevated prices going forward. So what does that mean? That means that we'll probably see higher prices through the spring and summer, probably through the rest of the year, but again, not at the level we're seeing right now. And of course, usage will decline when the weather gets warmer, so that will help with controlling some of these costs. What we're doing for our customers is that we're offering no cost, no fee payment plans for those who want to who want to pay off some of these higher energy costs over time. We also offer financial assistance for income qualified customers. We'll work with them to obtain a HEAP grant, which is a federally funded grant for income qualified customers, and customers who receive HEAP are also eligible for a bill discount on their Central Hudson bill, and that's offered through Central Hudson. We are working with our customers to enroll in budget billing if that's a smart option for them, and that levelizes the cost of energy, their bills, over 11 months with a true up on the 12th month, and that helps avoid those seasonal spikes in energy costs that could happen when usage and prices go up. And a quick word about the City of Beacon and the CCA. Those enrolled in the CCA, I understand, are paying a fixed price of about between 6 and 7 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. And by comparison, the current rate for electricity with this price spike is almost 22 cents. So those who are enrolled in the CCA on the electric side are actually being protected by these market prices, which is great news for those who are participating in the CCA. Natural gas is not a part of the CCA though, and that is subject to the higher costs. Central Hudson is able to spread out the higher costs of these natural gas prices over several months, so the impact is not as high as it would be otherwise. But again, we do expect to see higher prices than last year through the rest of this year. And as a reminder too, Central Hudson is not suspending utility services. We are not charging late fees or finance charges. That's been the case since March of 2020, and that is continuing. So customers who are having a big impact on their bills are actually protected under these voluntary rules that we put into place. But again, we are providing other types of assistance to help keep their arrears down, to provide grants and assistance as needed if they're qualified, and to also help extend the payments for customers so that they don't have to face a one-time large bill. And I'll open up our presentation to questions.
Great, thank you so much. All right, does the council have any questions? What?
Closer.
Thank you, John, for that. My question is, so for the billing issues, the first round, and by the way, I see that the description of why our bills are going up is really prominent on your website, and so thank you for that. But the billing issues that are problematic, can you help us understand how to identify those? And is there a quality control in the billing department on Central Hudson's end that's able to identify those if we aren't able to self-identify?
I think at this point, the groups of customers we're having the most trouble with are those who are who net meter, who have solar panels on their roofs. We're working through that. We're finding solutions to resolve those issues, and we are getting there, but it's taking more time than we had anticipated. Also, customers who receive their energy from a third-party supplier, like a CCA, and who are also budget billing customers. We're having some issues with that group too. Again, we're working through that, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to help identify any other groups that we might have problems with.
I'm sorry, I can't get my camera to work, but this is Eileen Lamorello. I just wanted to, thank you for your time. And I want to give you my commitment that, we are focused very heavily on getting better and on improving and returning to the Central Hudson that you all know and hopefully appreciate. So the categories John hit on really are the two biggest sources of pain points for customers right now. Customers who are with a third-party supplier and are also on levelized billing, which we call budget billing. We're still having some challenges there, working through those. As we've identified customer billing defects, we've also targeted those groups of customers and done our, everything we can to proactively communicate, whether it was, through email or over the phone or by mail, to let them know that when that they didn't have a bill yet, that when they could expect to start receiving bills, and actually how to pay attention to those bills in order to know which one was the right bill to focus on. So let me say a little bit more about that. If you're an ESCO customer and you're also on budget billing, and you may be hearing this from some of your constituents, they're receiving multiple bills, and it's not a great experience for customers, admittedly. And what those customers should be doing is paying the last bill they received, the bill dated February. So those bills started being released about a week and a half ago. There really was no good way to suppress all those single individual monthly bills in the system and also get the bills out to the customers. So we erred on the side of speed. And, it has been a little confusing, so we apologize for that. But customers who are in that category should pay their most recent bill for the month of February, which is inclusive of charges and payments, for the past 6 months. So I know that was a mouthful. Those really are the biggest areas of concern right now.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, so those people that are experiencing higher than normal bills, are you saying that it's not related to your billing program, but it's related only to supply costs?
Generally speaking, yes. But we also recognize there are some issues related to estimated bills. And we will work through customers who feel that there was an incorrect estimate to address those and resolve those issues too. And let me talk a little bit about estimated bills and why they exist. Central Hudson used to issue bi-monthly bills. So our residential customers received a bill every other month. In 2016, state regulators required that Central Hudson now bill monthly instead of every other month, the way we used to. And the cost at the time to implement monthly meter reading would have raised rates for our customers, and we wanted to avoid that because of operational costs. So we started estimating every other month and doing actual reads every month. This of course over time has caused a lot of confusion for our customers. They don't like it. We know that. We don't like it either, and we are looking at solutions to try to provide actual reads, whether it's by technology or by reading every month in the future. We're really committed to resolving this issue. But for now, we do have estimated billing, and that sometimes causes problems for our customers. But again, we will work with them to address that problem. There are ways that customers can self-report their meter reading by simply taking a picture of the meter and emailing it to us. There's information about that on our website. But we know that this is an issue for our customers.
And the way, if I were to believe social media, some people are saying on social media that they're receiving rebate cards after things have been resolved through your offices. Is that true, or is that?
We did issue some gift cards to some of the customers we were having some problems with, some groups of customers that we were billing incorrectly or having issues with the new system, or customers who hadn't received a bill in a couple of months. Again, to reassure them that we're not going to charge them finance charges, we're not going to shut them off, we're going to help them, with no-cost payment plans should they receive a large bill. It was our way of saying thank you and apologizing for what had taken place.
Okay, thanks.
Related to estimated readings, is it possible that some customers had 2 months in a row of estimated readings?
Yes, that is possible. And that could be for a variety of reasons. One could be accessing a meter, and the other could be the building system itself, the new building system itself. And that's one of the issues that we're working through.
And is it the case then that the next time you have a bill that is not estimated, that's actually a meter reading, that if it is lower, that basically you'll see a deduction on your bill, so you might pay less for the month because you paid more than you did when it was estimated for 2 months?
That is correct. That is correct. And it could be the other way around. If the estimate was too low and the actual is higher, then the bill could seem higher than the previous month. So again, it's an issue with estimated bills. Now, energy usage can vary from month to month, just because of seasons. You'll use more in January than you might in April, for example. Use more in August than you would in September. So it's a matter of weather and energy usage, so it varies anyway. However, we want to provide our customers with as accurate information about their energy use as possible. You know, we know that a lot of our customers are trying to save money. They're purchasing LEDs, they're making upgrades to their homes, changing windows, adding insulation, and they want to see the results of that effort. And so the way you do that is with actual readings or by seeing what your actual use is. That's why we're working towards that as a solution. And we'll be working with our state regulators to see how we might be able to do that in a way that's cost effective.
Okay, any last questions? Because we had a full night, right? Okay, so I appreciate Central Hudson being here this evening. We understand why you couldn't be here during the storms. I think the information is helpful. It goes on our public television site, and it's available in other venues. I assume there's some place for people to call. Might you provide that, or an email or something? That's as your last statement? Or not?
John, you're on mute. John.
Apologies, I'm good, I'm sorry. I lost my screen as well. Yes, our customers can call us at 845-452-2700. They can go on centralhudson.com, and we have a chat bot that can help them with answering some of our questions, and they can reach out to us on social media.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
I'd also just like to emphasize that I think my biggest takeaway from this meeting here is that the CCA that we've enrolled in is a significant savings for this community. So don't believe necessarily what you hear on social media. Read your bill, look at it. You're saving a considerable amount of money, and it's good for the environment. Thanks.
Thanks, George.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yep.
Yep. All right.
All right, so our next item, so we have two things where there's community involvement. I just want to talk people through how that works, because we've got a lot of people here in the audience. First, let me just say that the masking requirement at City Hall, along with the entire state, has changed. If you are vaccinated, we do not require masks. If you wear a mask, you may choose to do so. If you're not vaccinated, you should be wearing a mask. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we've got two public comment periods. The first one is a general one, and that we're going to open up first. And if you are here to talk about one of the two hearings this evening, then wait for those hearings, right? So this open public comment can be about any topic other than the items for public hearing. The one is regarding stop signs. But the other public hearing that we're having tonight is regarding prohibiting eviction without good cause. If you're here to speak on that, and you've checked the box that you want to make a general public comment, if I call your name and you just want to make that comment, say, we'll pick you up when we go to that public hearing. All right, so the first opportunity for public comments is general topic. All right?
And Mayor, it wasn't about stop signs. It was about a part of our code that deals with the fire chief.
Yeah, I was wondering why that is.
Yeah.
Okay. So no wonder no one talked about this,
I mean,
right?
we could do more stop signs.
Yeah, I know.
There's a resolution to set a public hearing for stop signs, that's why.
Yeah,
okay.
That's not
You're
the public
close.
hearing
Okay.
tonight.
So the other thing is we do this, again, it's a full house. We will cover people who are in the room first. The first opportunity for public comments we'll probably limit to a half hour. That's usually what we do, because I think what we really want to do tonight is allow as much time for public comments on the public hearing, which is the prohibiting eviction without good cause. So again, if you kind of keep your general comments limited, we'll get to that one quickly. I see signs in the audience. You know what? Welcome. The only thing I would ask about signs is be respectful of speakers, right? Don't hold them up and, up and down to get attention. If you want to hold them up, fine. But be respectful of speakers. The other thing that we do here is we ask that people stay respectful, that you limit your comments to the issues, and we'll all do fine, right? So let's go ahead and have, again, this is for public comments. I'll go down a public list first of who's in the room. We may have some time to do ones online. If not, we can pick them up at the second opportunity for public comments at the end of our meeting. So first one, I've got Arthur Kamens for a general comment. Arthur? Okay, great.
I'm going to take this off because my
Yeah.
glasses are fogging up.
And it's just nice to see you without it, too.
Good evening, everyone. I want to address what I perceive was a challenge to democratic participation at the last public city council meeting. Before the public comment period, as tonight we were reminded to address policy and not persons so we could be respectful. The first speaker was interrupted almost immediately after the words "attempt by the mayor" were spoken, but before she had an opportunity to even address policies supported or actions taken by city officials. Another call-in speaker was cut off entirely. Was that respectful or an unacceptable restraint of free speech and the right of citizens to question and criticize elected officials? Immediately after the meeting, my wife and I sent an email objecting to the mayor's actions to the city council. I received a response from the city administrator defending not just that action, but also characterizing her remarks as imputing the mayor and legal counsel's integrity, citing city council rules and procedures passed in January 2022. I was stunned when I wrote it, and I want to quote it for the public. Any statements, comments, or remarks made by a speaker shall not concern the motives of a member of the city council and/or constitute a personal and/or political attack or criticism of any member of the city council, any officer of the city, or any employee of the city or the public. Think about those words, everyone, and how they were interpreted by our mayor in the last meeting. City council members and our mayor are elected officials, by definition, political positions. If the public cannot criticize by position and name, and yes, question the motives of folks we elect, we have no democracy. Mentioning the name of a city official in relation to what they said, or did does not constitute a personal attack. Neither does suggesting that their outside interests might influence their perspectives and motives. That's not a reflection of disrespect or attack on their integrity, unless, that is, one claims to be above critique after attaining a position of power. No one is immune from bias. That's not a personal attack. It's the reality of what influences each of our thoughts and actions. Are we expected to believe that, unlike the rest of us, people we elect are immune from their own life experiences? It's
15
strange
seconds.
stability to imagine that being a landlord or representing one of them has no influence. Claiming the right to protection from criticism silences and discourages civic participation that Beacon claims to encourage. The wording of the council rules reads not like a call for civility or a ban, but a ban on civic discourse. I urge you to reconsider the intent, wording, and implementation of the council rules, particularly in this time of attempts in all levels of a society to restrain speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Addison, you're next, but you're on for good cause, all right? Same with Sherry Griffin. The next person who's got a general public comment would be Rich Kaplan. And again, not on the subject of the public hearing on prohibiting eviction without good cause. Okay.
No, it's not on stop signs either.
Okay.
Anyway, my name is Rich Kaplan. I represent Beacon St. Patrick's Day Parade of Green. Okay, and I'm on the green team, believe it or not. Okay. Anyway, it was about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago on a Wednesday night, I get a phone call from the city of Beacon that 3 days from now, I will not be allowed to have 1,000 people on Main Street marching in the Parade of Green and 5,000 people in the city of Beacon on Main Street celebrating. That was almost 2 years ago. Almost 2 weeks ago, we have an approval, and thank you. So the Green Team thanks you. I'd like the city of Beacon and the community of Beacon to thank you for allowing us to do this and for allowing the community to come out. You know, our parade is a family parade. It's a community parade. It's the high school. It's the Elks Club. It's children. It's happy faces. And I'm very happy to be here and thank everyone who's involved, whether it's the highway department, the police department. Chris, you did a lot of work. And everyone else. And hopefully everyone will come out. It's going to be 3 Saturdays on March 12th. At 11 o'clock we line up, 12 o'clock we're going down Main Street. And hopefully we'll have all the happy faces, and I'll be able to say the same thing I say every year. From our first parade, when I had a very nice family come in, and a little 6-year-old came up to me and said, "Can I come back next week for the parade?" And that's what I look forward to. And again, I'm here just to thank everyone, and please, please, please come out to the parade. Have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would ask hold the clapping too. One, it'll just make the whole thing take longer, right? So again, it's going to be a long evening. I think what we want to emphasize is the ability of individuals to speak. So let's just do that. All right. Kimberly Markian.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Markarian. The reason why I'm here is for the Parade of Green. We want to say thank you so much. We started very grassroots. I think there was like 7 of us. And we started 7 years ago. When we came in, the mayor met us, the police met us. We got to see everybody, and it was very exciting for us. So we were quite concerned when we couldn't have it for 2 years, and we're all working so hard, and people are calling. Now, I was born here 65 years ago. My mother and father are from here. It is such a lovely thing, and the person that is our Grand Marshal is Tony Lassiter. Tony is a Vietnam War hero, and we did it. How we choose is who gave to the community, and because we're all on the committee, we get to hear what people think and how they do it and who they want. So this is just our opportunity to say thank you very much for allowing us in 4 weeks to throw a parade. We're really excited, and we just wanted to say thank you so much. Come and cheer on Tony and see the other people that won, because they were Clara Lou, who was the mayor. It was Fred Antellect. It was the Murphy boys. It was Pat Kerr was our first one, and he came here straight from Ireland. So come and enjoy, and thank you so much. That's it.
Teresa Kraft.
I'm so excited. I come from a family of Harrigans and O'Neills. Whew. I think it's time the City of Beacon gets involved with the state's Certified Local Government Program, the Division of Historic Preservation through the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, or the very least establish a formal architectural review commission, and not just an architectural review board based on planning board subcommittees and developers, especially with 2 major historic buildings and parcels on the city's agenda for review. Beacon needs more protection for its cultural resources. We are one of only a few municipalities in the Hudson Valley not enrolled in this program. I think it's time.
Thank you. Is it a Daniel Latona? And do you want to talk on something other than good cause? Okay, so I'll mark you on the other side, and then during the hearing, you'll come back, all right? No problem. Megan Wang or Wong? Okay, great, no problem. A lot of people did that, no problem. Bill Irwin. Bill, are you here to talk on some topic other than good cause? No. Okay. All right, yeah, a lot of people enter the first column, so. Lori, Dick, same issue? Same? Okay. Donna changed her mind. Vikas is only on the general comments, or are you here to talk on good cause? Okay. No problem. And then Amy Hunt. Okay. So let's move them all over. Okay.
Mayor, you have 2 online.
Okay. Anyone online to talk about a general comment as opposed to good cause?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment for the general topic public comment period, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on a phone, you can press *9. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll have to join the Zoom by visiting beaconny.gov. And as of now, Mayor, as Chris said, we have 2 attendees who would like to speak. The first of which is Steve Bone.
Okay. And again, if it's on the topic of the public hearing, we'll just move you over.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi. My name is Steve Bone. I'm a homeowner here in Beacon. Sorry, I'm plugging in my computer. And I just wanted to voice my support for the good cause eviction legislation.
Hi, Steve. Hang on. So this is general topics. If you want to talk on that one, I can stick you on that list, and you'll come up when you come up on the list.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks. All right. It's all right. Got one more?
There's one more, and that is Melanie Weisenthal.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Melanie. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi. Thank you so much for letting me join in on Zoom. I'm also a homeowner in Beacon, and I'm not, please forgive me if this is not my turn to speak. This is my first city council meeting. I'm one of those poor, sad saps who've been having constant billing issues with Central Hudson, and I was kind of hoping that I would have had the opportunity to ask them a few questions, just because I have been back and forth with both Central HUD and Columbia Energy, each of them blaming the other for the rise in costs, the problems with the billing, and the solar versus not solar. We don't have any of that. I had no idea there were grants or that there was a CCA. I don't even know what that is really, and I feel really alone in this experience. I've been calling in and being told it's not their fault, or it's my fault, or that they haven't been by to get a reading since September, and that I should go out and take my reading, which is fine, but I feel like, I really feel like the city council, it would be great if someone could advocate for us in this really stressful experience. I had a bill this month of almost $2,000, and last August it was $300. And if I could show you what kind of billing nightmares we've been experiencing, I don't sleep at night. I mean, it's really, really stressful. So I was wondering if anyone had any suggestions on what I could do, or if there's any support through the town. I would be so appreciative of that. And that's my speech.
Yep.
And thank you.
Yep. So the thing I would offer you, one is their phone number, which they said was 452-2700. The other thing is we can, if you would provide an email to Ben Swanson, who is managing the online, we'll make sure to connect you to someone there. Okay?
Sure. How do I do that?
I don't think they have access to the chat.
Just give the general. You can call the general number, Melanie, 838-5000, and we'll work with you and Central Hudson.
Okay?
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So that concludes public comments in general.
You have one more online for CCA team.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Okay. Ben?
Sorry.
All right, CCA team, you have been unmuted.
Hey, this is Jeff Demansky. I am only replying because Melanie was asking for help. And Melanie, we are here to help. So I'm Jeff Demansky. I'm a Beacon resident, but I'm actually heading up this Community Choice Aggregation Program support team. And we have a number I just want to share with you to give to you. You are in the CCA that you see Columbia on your bill, And unfortunately, you're stuck in that middle where you're getting misinformation that Central Hudson is telling you to call Columbia, then Columbia is telling you to call Central Hudson. The number you should call, and we can help you, and we'll look at your bill, and we'll figure out what's going on and point you in the right direction. That number is 845-859-9099. Again, 845-859-9099. It is a resource that the City of Beacon has provided through this program, and it's pretty cool that we're here to help.
Okay, great. All right, so we've got,
Mayor, there is actually one further hand. That's Brian Mendel.
One more, and then we'll cut it online.
okay, why don't we do the one in person here first? We got some time. So Stash?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stash Jankowski, Ward 2. I just want to reinforce what Arthur said. I think we should be allowed to make comments about specific members of council or the mayor. As you know, in the past, Mr. Mayor, I've said some crazy things, only about policies, not about anybody's character. And I think should be limited to policies, whatever, but nobody should attack anybody personally. And I think you guys should be able to be spoken to by name if you have something that we object to or we have criticism of. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we said we still have one more online?
Yes.
Yes, that's Brian Mendel.
Okay.
Hi, this is actually Peter Bailey. My husband is Brian Mandel, but I live on Wilk Street, and I just want to speak on the Central Hudson issues that I've also been dealing with for several months now. And I would, for anybody, especially the previous homeowner who spoke earlier, I have previously filed a complaint with the Public Service Commission that I think that we should all be aware of. I don't know if there's a way to do it over the phone. I would suggest that everybody go to their website. If you just Google Public Service Commission New York, you'll be able to file a complaint directly through that. It's a short form. I know I've attached sort of images of my bills previously, and that has really helped get the attention of Central Hudson for me in the past. So I encourage anyone who has ongoing issues to do the same. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. So we've got two public hearings. We can do the firefighters one pretty quickly, I bet. So we have a public hearing on a proposed law concerning the residency requirements of career firefighters and the fire chief. Can I just get a motion to open the public hearing in a second?
Motion.
Second.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so Drew, can you give us a quick explanation, and then we'll see if there's any public comment?
Sure. So our office was asked to prepare a local law to increase the radius for firefighters from a 15-mile radius to a 30-mile radius. This is similar to police officers. It's a radius that would still allow them to be, respond, but also increase where they are able to live and maybe increase the amount who are able to participate. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yep.
One of the members of the council raised the issue that our language also specifically excludes anyone with a felony, and we did have the attorney look at that matter, and it is countered by New York state law. So what we're going to propose is to leave this public hearing open and then to workshop the law again to have additional language changing that.
Okay.
We can, for certain felonies, you're allowed to do that, but under New York state law, you can't do a blanket policy.
Yeah, Chris, may I
Yeah,
just
please.
expand? I don't think I have to hit the button anymore. But
Move it closer, Drew, and you'll.
This was a new mic for me. So Paloma had asked if we can remove the language about the felony. Under the New York State corrections law, you cannot refuse to hire someone just because they have a felony conviction unless that felony conviction conflicts with their job. So if if you're looking to hire a firefighter and they've been convicted of arson, you can refuse to hire them in that instance. If it's tax fraud, well, then the felony is not applicable to the job that they're looking for. And this is evaluated on a case-by-case basis depending on the job. So regardless that the language is in the code, the city is preempted from following the city code, and we have to follow the state corrections law. So we can take that sentence out, we can replace it with other language if the city council so chooses, and we can discuss that more in workshop. So we did look into that, and that's an overview of our response.
Okay.
Thank you for looking into it.
Absolutely.
So anyone want to make a public comment on this item? Okay. Yeah, public hearing on this item.
I agree with amending this code. As the daughter of a career firefighter for the city of Yonkers, I remember when my father could move outside Westchester County and purchase a home in the country for his family. I think this will broaden the base of applicants and continue to bring diversity to the city of Beacon. And while we watch the recent development getting bigger and bigger, we need to broaden our force. Kudos to the chief and his team. Beacon is very fortunate.
Thank you. Any other comments on this public hearing? And I think I will entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Motion.
All right.
Second.
Any-
Until February 7th. So it's
March.
March
7th.
7th, yeah.
Okay.
But
that's
it's
2
not
weeks.
exactly 2 weeks.
Oh, right, 13 days. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. All right, so our second public hearing, I'll need a motion and a second to open a public hearing on amending Chapter 13073 about preventing eviction without good cause.
Motion?
Second.
So I got a motion and a second. All in favor, open the public hearing.
Aye.
Okay. Drew, can you give us a brief explanation? And then we'll receive.
Hold on there, let me just
Yep.
pull it up, my organized folder. So this evening, we will be discussing a proposed good cause eviction law. What this law does, it does two things. We're cleaning up, thank you, we're cleaning up Chapter 173, the existing provision. So the law is a little bit long, but the first part just repeats and cleans up what's already in Chapter 173. The second part pertains to specifically to good cause eviction, where we set forth requirements under which a landlord may evict a tenant. So the first part sets forth applicability. So we know that the law applies to, does not apply to owner-occupied apartments of less than 4 units. That's where we ended up. So if you're non-owner occupied or you're owner occupied and 4 units or more, you are subject to this law, in which case you cannot evict a tenant unless you provide good cause under the enumerated options, which would include if you're causing a nuisance. It would include if your landlord is looking to occupy one of the apartments. It includes if you fail to enter into a lease in good faith, but the lease has to meet very specific requirements that are set forth in the law. So if the landlord can demonstrate good cause to evict you, then they can proceed to court to evict you. If they cannot show good cause as set forth in law, they cannot evict you.
I just want to note that not paying rent is also a good cause, since that is something we've heard a lot about.
Drew, would you confirm that?
No, not paying rent. If it's an unconscionable rent increase, then not paying rent, you can be evicted for.
No, but if,
I think you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Are we saying the same thing, just different ways?
No, not paying rent is a good cause to evict somebody.
Not paying,
If a tenant doesn't pay rent, that is a good cause for a landlord to evict them, correct?
no.
Yes.
Yes.
Say it again, Justin?
Take your time.
Not paying rent. If a tenant doesn't pay their rent, a landlord can evict them because that's a good cause.
Drew, I think the exception you're thinking of is if someone does an unconscionable rent increase and the person doesn't pay that unconscionable rent increase, that is not
That is not a good
correct.
cause
But
to evict
otherwise,
them.
not paying the rent is,
Right, I just want to make sure that we're aware of the exceptions in the law as well.
right.
Yes.
That's where I'm trying to emphasize.
You were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. With that, we have a lot of people like to speak, so let's open up the public hearing. Addison, you were doing the right thing. Come on up.
Good evening.
Thanks.
Well, thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks, City Council. Hello? Close to the mic? Okay. I'm going to give obeisance to the two things today, 222220222. A quick poem I wrote about 2 hours ago. It's called Two. It's very brief. Two standards for housing and health. Two classes, poor and struggling. Two faces in leadership. Two political parties bereft of vision. Too long waiting for economic justice. And I'm here with Community Voices Heard, an organization working to help tenants and to help local people in their communities. I wrote a poem in 1984. Some of the conditions are still extant. It's called Moment of Safety. From the context of a moment of safety, of a full belly, home to come home to, without bars on the window, bars on every corner. From a one-bedroom ivory tower with 2 TVs, hot water, no one knocking to get in, power on, keeping beer, meat, bread for I, me, mine. From this heaven I shout into the wind of hell outside, cry for the homeless, scattered characters trapped in our American dream. Cry smash this state that sends police to beat, kill, and paint over the violence that is poverty. Pray thanks to a God that is deaf or dead, that this deadbolt keeps those brothers, sisters on the other side of the door. Guilty as charged, I know. I'll still eat tomorrow and like it, yes, as if I could steal safety from the night they walk in every day. I have faith in property and lock the door shut. I used to work with homeless people, work with a lot of other people. I was head of a job training program. I was an advocate for homeless people. A lot of homeless people are caused by health problems, loss of a job, a lot of veterans, a lot of people coming out of prison, out of jail or out of prison, and a lot of victims of domestic violence, and a lot of them children. Right now I work as a monitor for the Beacon School bus company, and I see a lot of kids every day, and I worry about where they're gonna live in Beacon or near Beacon, where they are gonna live. With the prices that are going up now, I'm a homeowner. The bank still lets me live there maybe another 10 years, I don't know. But I want people to be able to live, get educated, get careers, and live in this community. I love this community, been here 17 years, and thanks for hearing me out, thank you.
Thanks, Addison. Sherry Griffin?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to be able to speak tonight. I'm a third-generation Beacon resident. Housing stability is a human right, and having stable housing should not be about luck. We all know what happens with luck. It eventually runs out. Unlike many others, I have a great landlord, but others aren't as fortunate as me. When there is housing stability in your neighborhood, people stay longer and have more of an interest in their community. It's nice when someone can build a relationship or friendship with their neighbors and community to where everyone looks out for each other. Many people can lose their homes in the blink of an eye or face the possibility of eviction on a landlord's sudden desire, or they can face the possibility of unfair and unjust rent increase that can leave them homeless or even be at risk of eviction, despite paying their rent on time and being the ideal tenant. I think it's particularly important that we support housing stability, well-rounded housing that is affordable, especially for the most vulnerable. I would like our city council to have everyone's best interest regardless of their economic status, and not be more for the haves and forgetting about the have-nots. Let's make Beacon be known as the town people want to live in for many good reasons, not being known as the town that pushed away a certain economic demographic population out. We need good cause eviction legislation to promote housing security, protect the tenant against unfair rent increases, landlord intimidation, and to help supply stability for our community. I'd like to end this today with the dates being 2/22/22. It's been too long, housing is too high, and too many people are being denied. Pass the good cause eviction legislation.
Thank you. Teresa Kraft.
This mask thing's got to go. I can't breathe on a good day. I support my neighbors opposing enacting a new good cause eviction law for all the same reasons. I believe that slipping in the section Article 3 under the guise of good cause will have no teeth, but may still bite the city in the end with lawsuits against this municipality. The city's attorneys have already stated Beacon does not have the authority to enact a good cause eviction law, and New York's Conference of Mayors confirmed it, and New York State updated its Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act in 2019. Why should this council push to enact this revised law with a thinly veiled good cause eviction clause when our existing law is already legal and beneficial to all involved? Why would we force our small-time landlords who are trying to make a living out of the equation when in turn they could sell to a bigger investor who will only complicate it further? We need to focus on building true affordable housing and not continue with the masked 10% market rate units in any further development. That formula is not working to the benefit of the residents who actually need it. The city should not allow Airbnbs and limit short-term rentals, and stop allowing developers and their silent partners to continue hiding behind LLCs. I'm on the fence with this local law update and rely on our legal team. I hope you take our law firm's advice that the residents are paying for. Thank you.
Thanks. Daniel Latona. And again, we have a long group. People have kept their comments short, so, if you can, that's great, because we have a lot of people that we'd like to get in to speak.
But everyone
Thanks.
has 5 minutes if they choose to.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Daniel Latona. I'm the political coordinator with For the Many, which is a grassroots organization here in the Mid-Hudson Valley. We represent a lot of tenants in Beacon, so I'm coming to speak to you in favor of good cause eviction. I'd like to start with the facts and clear up a couple of misconceptions that have been thrown out on previous days about the good cause eviction law. It is not rent control. It protects tenants from eviction due to predatory rent increases, but it does not stop all rent increases. Second, it's not an end to all evictions. Tenants would still be required to follow their lease, obey the law, and pay their rent on time, but tenants who do so will have the right to lease renewal. Right now, a landlord can evict you for any reason whatsoever. I am a tenant. I have a leaky roof, a moldy basement, but I worry that if I complain about these things to my landlord, that I can get evicted for that reason. So tenants should have the right to speak up and not be afraid of getting evicted. Good cause eviction is not a radical bill. It's not radical to say that a tenant who follows their lease, obeys the law, and pays their rent should be protected from eviction. People who play by the rules should get their lease renewed. This is just common sense. Right now, the people most opposed to good cause eviction are a few greedy landlords who want to maintain a system of double-digit rent increases and arbitrary evictions. While government shouldn't work for the greedy, it should work for the needy. So I urge the City Council to listen to the majority and pass good cause eviction tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, Wang or Wong? You'll have to tell me which one it is.
Hi, my name is Megan Wong, and I'm a resident and homeowner in Ward 3. I come here today advocating to pass good cause eviction. First and foremost, I believe in its ability to help build a sustainable and cohesive community, and I believe in its ability to cultivate an environment where people in Beacon can call our town home. As someone who has lived in 5 places over the course of my life thus far, home has always been difficult for me to define. I think having shelter, a place that is safe and secure, is baseline. It's a human right. Beyond that, home is a place where you feel like you can build and invest towards the future, where you can build a family or friends and a broader community, where you care about your neighbors, the environment, schools, and programs. It's about identifying with a place that is bigger than ourselves, and I'm proud to call Beacon my home. Shelter, specifically housing and housing security, in my opinion, is something that every human should have access to. Unfortunately, and for many systemic reasons, many people will never be able to afford a home, apartment, or otherwise own. And so as a result, their only option is to rent. But just because they are renters does not mean that they shouldn't have or have access to a safe and secure shelter and a place to call home. The proposed law protects tenants and does no harm to small or responsible landlords. Small and responsible landlords can still evict or raise rent for a good cause under this legislation. All I am advocating for is basic protections to renters so that they can feel safe and secure, knowing that they will have housing, and so that we can all commit to investing in building a community and a place that we can all call home. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Winterbottom?
Hi, good evening. My name is Julie Winterbottom, and I live in Ward 1. And I'm here tonight to urge you to pass the good cause eviction law. I have lived in Beacon since 2016, 4 of those years as a renter. I was lucky. I had a landlord who increased my rent very little over 4 years, reflecting the fact that his costs remained stable even as Beacon's housing market boomed. I know that many people in Beacon are not so lucky. One 20-year-long resident I spoke to who works at a local restaurant has to leave his longtime home because the rent shot way up beyond his means. I know he is just one of many. That is why, with the end of the New York State eviction moratorium, we need a good cause eviction law that protects every tenant. You should not have to be a homeowner to have secure housing. We can do something about that, and we must do it now by passing this law. I want to address any of you who are opposed to this law or on the fence about it because you view it as a form of rent control that curbs what I believe is a mythical right of landlords to charge the absolute top price the market will bear. The law simply balances the right of landlords to make a reasonable income from their property with the right of tenants to have a stable home and fair rent hikes. In fact, on this point, the current draft, or I believe it's still true of the current draft, of the Beacon law needs fixing. Market changes and sale price are listed as considerations for a court to consider for rent increases above the proposed 5% limit. This clause makes the law useless, in fact, because it would allow a landlord to raise rents to match the escalating housing costs apart from their actual cost increases, pushing tenants out of their homes. These points are not in the proposed state law, and they shouldn't be in Beacon's either. I'd also like to address the mayor's position as reported in the Highlands Current. I believe this is correct, that he can't support this law because the city's attorney says he won't defend the city if it is sued. While this sounds ominous, I do not think it holds up as a reason not to support the law. The city attorney's opinion is at odds with several housing law advocates. Even if it turns out to be correct, the city has plenty of opportunity to avoid a lawsuit. No suits will be filed in Beacon until a ruling comes down in the case against Albany's good cause eviction legislation, and that is estimated to take at least 6 months. We don't know what the outcome will be there, and Beacon will have ample opportunity to amend or rescind its legislation once we know. In the meantime, tenants here need protection from unjust evictions and rent hikes. I ask you to focus on that and pass this much-needed law with corrections as soon as possible. It is the council's job to consider everyone in this city, not just those with enough money and lawyers to make us nervous. Renters are an important part of our community. They are the restaurant workers and laborers and house cleaners who cannot afford to buy a house. They are the young new arrivals who have no down payment saved up. They are poor and working class and middle class Beaconites who were here long before Beacon became Brooklyn on the Hudson. They deserve to live here just as much as the moneyed new homeowners, if not more. Protecting renters benefits the whole city. It makes our city economically and racially diverse. That makes us a stronger, safer city, a more interesting city, a city with a heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Irwin?
Thank you to all the council members for their hard and tedious work. I support good cause eviction that clarifies and helps equalize the rights of tenants and landlords in a way that would lead to the fairest results with the least litigation. During the gold rush of high rent, hastily built apartment buildings, rents have skyrocketed, increasing the risk that renters will lose their homes. Meanwhile, the city has not been able to implement and enforce an effective policy that requires developers to include apartments that are actually affordable. Market rate rent is not affordable for an awful lot of people who have lived in Beacon for a long time. This sets the stage for instability and division for decades to come. The national crisis of homelessness did not fall out of the sky. It was created step by step by municipalities that failed over and over to create affordable housing. The stability and predictability from good cause eviction law would be a positive step in dealing with this crisis. Opponents of good cause eviction have spoken as if the law would reduce the legal rights of landlords. They also claim it would harm small landlords. In fact, landlords' legal rights are not compromised by this proposed law, and it specifically exempts small landlords. All property owners still have access to services of the county sheriff to forcibly remove tenants upon court order. This service costs $184. Tenants, on the other hand, do not have access to a county service that would, for a similar fee, competently repair leaking pipes, provide heat, or remediate urgent safety and health issues, such as toxic mold conditions. Ideally, I'd like to see a long-term housing policy in Beacon formulated by holding a series of citizen workshops that would include multiple tenants and landlords representing a variety of living and renting situations. This kind of face-to-face process could result in ideas that arise not from fear and demonization, but from respect and understanding by and for all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Melinda Anderson, you didn't check a box, but if you want to talk on this issue, you're okay? All right. Nancy Rosales also didn't check a box. Would you like to speak? Okay. Okay.
I wasn't prepared to speak, but I will. Anyway, Nancy Rose-Aller, 72 Duchess Terrace here in Beacon. I think that what has brought us to this good cause eviction is unfortunately some poor planning on the part of our city. As I look around the room, I see a lot of my colleagues. I'm a real estate agent, I'm a property manager. I see a lot of responsible landlords here who have not raised their rent to the varying degrees that are described. They maintain their properties. And I think there's a bit of a disconnect here in the affordable housing. The city has created on some level through the planning process these luxury buildings that have come to town. So I do feel that it is upon the city to be remedying some affordable housing options for tenants, but I think that this good cause eviction is going down the wrong path of hurting the right landlords. I don't think it's aimed at, like I said, the people that I see around the room that I work with on a daily basis who are wonderful, responsible landlords who have kept the rents low during COVID, who have given tenants breaks on their rent, some that I've worked for, who told their tenants, oh, you don't have to pay rent for 2 or 3 months. Tenants didn't even ask, they gave breaks. So I think that this really needs to be weighed properly. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Paul Hardesty? Okay. Stosh, check this box.
Good evening again. It's nice to see smiley faces. It's time for everybody to remove. George, I agree with you that this law provides too much power to judges. There's too many words in the law that are undefined, such as unreasonable, substantial, that gives, I guess, the power to the judge to decide. The eviction process is expensive. We have to hire an attorney, and we can win a judgment. If there's damages, we can get damages, but then there's part two. We have to collect. I received a $2,000 damage award from a tenant who burnt a hole in the carpet on purpose. Turns out the FBI was after him. He threatened to kill the president. I never collected. He skipped town. I think he went back to Egypt. The council is making available monies to tenants. Can the landlords use some of that money to pay their attorney fees? It's not cheap to go to court. There's some comments I have about the good cause, the grounds. There's one clause in there that I think should be eliminated. I know it's debatable. It says the rate of increase relative to the tenant's ability to afford said increase. That could mean if a tenant loses a job or doesn't want to work when they've had these $600 a week payments by the government, my neighbor didn't want to work, can we evict them? Do we have to accept their rate or their whatever money they can afford? I know some of you argued that that's for people that can afford it. The CPI should be based on our locality. The building sale price adjusted after closing, and that's hard to determine what the rents should be raised to based on the sale price. What is the return of investment that the investor is looking for that bought that building? How did they determine what market value is? And to that market value clause, the substantial increase in market conditions should be Beacon, New York real estate market, not Arizona or New York City or whatever. I think we need to further explain that sale price. There are some good things in the law. Oh, there's one other thing that should be added. Expenses for a landlord. 2 or 3 years ago, my taxes were increased by 20% because of an increase in the assessed value. I had to pass on those increases. I think one of the tenants actually I had to raise more than 5%. So you should include in that law expenses to the landlords. Again, tenants in violation of substantial obligations according to the lease. Who decides what's substantial? The judge, I guess. Pardon me, I have a hard time reading my own writing. Tenants refuse to grant access to a landlord, and there's certain reasons why they should. You need to add, if the landlord wants to show the apartment to a prospective new tenant. Most of the time that wouldn't apply. By the time you get notice that the tenant's going to leave, the current tenant, you should be able to show it, the apartment, to someone else. Sometimes the tenant might not want to show it. One other thing added to that clause should be the landlord should be allowed to enter the property with sufficient notice, generally 24 hours according to my lease, to inspect the property. There are tenants from hell, let me tell you. I rented to one person that was a 49-year-old engineer. Like a dummy, I didn't inspect it. 9 months later, he got promoted, moved out. When I got in there, there was all kinds of cleaning to do. Not damage so much, but just cleaning. So we should be able to inspect the property. I think I did mention the market conditions. There's a clause in there, something about
15 seconds.
something about 3.5%. That should be eliminated. That clause, I don't make sense. I have to hire an attorney again to figure out what that is. And the tenant, the landlord needs to negotiate a lease with the tenant? How does that happen? And if a tenant goes to court and doesn't have evidence, the judge can listen to his statements? Huh. How many tenants lie? Many have lied to me. Thank you all.
Thank you. Donna Hardesty? No, Donna Hardesty. Unless you want to pass? All right. Jaheen Griffin?
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I'm trying in a second. Thank you. Hello, my name is James Griffin, lifelong resident of Beacon, Fair City. I'm actually here to read a letter sent by my aunt, who is also a resident of Beacon, who has moved on at this point. So I'm going to do that right now. I was unable to attend tonight, but I have concerns about the growth that has happened in Beacon. I see the need for affordable and stable rentals to maintain a diverse community. As a third-generation Beacon resident, I was forced to leave Beacon in 1987 because of the increase in home prices due to people moving from Westchester County. I moved to upstate New York. For the same cost to live in Section 8 housing, I moved to a 2-bedroom luxury apartment with wall-to-wall carpeting, central air, a pool, and a top school district in the state. Later, I was able to purchase a home. In 2007, I returned to Beacon and commuted to NYC with consideration of moving back. The cost, again, was too high, even with selling my upstate home. I considered returning to Beacon upon my retirement because my remaining siblings are there. In 2018, I did a college project in my hometown and learned that Beacon's population was declining because it was losing the senior population due to high taxes in the seller's market. The current cost of good housing is becoming unobtainable due to the COVID migration. I support the good cause eviction legislation to provide Beacon with an ability to provide quality people with security in their housing. This is from Sandra Griffin, Beacon High School, class of 1972 president. It would turn out that 28 years later, her nephew would also serve as Beacon High School president, and 8 years after that, his brother would serve as 18th Beacon High School president. I say that because what this means to me is not about the rents or the tenant, or excuse me, the owners against the tenants, or the owners against the city, or the tenants against the owners. This is about community. This is about keeping the people who care about Beacon in Beacon. This is about giving the opportunity for people who want to be in Beacon, who are here, to stay in Beacon. It's nice to see everybody, you know, the new faces coming up and down Main Street and whatnot, but it's disappointing to see those faces replace people as opposed to be joined by them. A lot of us during this COVID have seen the housing market explode, and dealing with some real estate agents and friends of mine who are in the industry, we've seen that people have been buying houses sight unseen, just cash money, regardless of whether you followed the process of maintaining a loan from the bank or you know, raising your credit score where it needed to be. Didn't matter. The other thing about that is that it's not just people coming in to buy homes to live in. There are hedge funds, investment companies who are buying these homes with the purpose of creating profit. It's not going to do anything for your city as far as building community. That being said, I hope you really consider the good cause eviction legislation, especially since it still allows you to get rid of those problem tenants you talk about. Anybody who's not paying rent, anybody who is destroying your property, anybody who is not maintaining a good relationship in that capacity, you still can get them out of there. So it doesn't really affect us that's concerned. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Eli Bernowitz?
Good evening. My name is Eli Berkowitz. I apologize for my bad handwriting. I am with Community Voices Heard, and I'm here to speak in favor of good cause eviction tonight. You know, at its foundation, this law has a simple proposition, which is that tenants deserve a fair day in court if their landlord seeks to remove them or to alter significantly the terms of their lease. Now, we've heard some people call into question the ability of our courts to make a fair and impartial decision. I'll leave that for another hearing. But obviously there's a lot of myth-making that's happening about this law, and so I do want to go through briefly some of the top things it does do and doesn't do for everyone's clarity. So, good cause eviction does not cap rents. It is not rent control. It does give tenants the right to ask the court to consider why the landlord has decided to raise the rent above 5%. And they may consider it's for good reason. There are plenty of reasons given in the law for why that would be a justifiable increase. It does not stop all evictions, as has been mentioned. Instead, it gives tenants the right to ask the court to consider if their eviction is for a good cause, as listed in the law. And finally, it doesn't enforce a permanent lease. It gives tenants the right to not be forced to leave for arbitrary or subjective reasons. But again, the landlord can ask the court to consider the reasons that they have for not renewing the lease. And I had some more notes, but really what I want to respond to tonight is the fact that I believe that there are landlords who want to do right by tenants in this room. And I want to dispel this idea that this law was drafted in opposition and in targeting landlords who are trying to survive in an economy that honestly is getting more difficult for small homeowners. My mom is a landlord. After living the entirety of her childhood and young adulthood in poverty, she was able to buy a home with a rental unit and rents it. She is one of your good small landlords. She does not raise her rent above a certain amount, but keeps up with repairs and costs. So the first thing that occurred to me is, maybe things are done differently here, but in my mom's case, she charges rent in order to cover costs and in order to cover things like her property taxes and in order to have a rainy day fund for when certain exigencies require it, right? And so that's my understanding of part of why we pay rent as tenants. I'm a lifelong renter after moving out of her home. And so as a tenant, I don't have those same protections currently. I do not have the money to hire an attorney, and I think it is gracious that the city of Beacon decided to spend that money on providing it for tenants, but we also know that there are hundreds of eviction cases moving through the state courts right now. There's dozens in Beacon City Court, and those tenants, many of them will exhaust that fund quickly. So we need laws like good cause eviction to level the playing field and to even the scales so that everyone can have their fair day in court and have their needs addressed by the people that we have assigned to arbitrate those disagreements. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Wofford?
Hi, my name is Gail Wofford. I am along with my partner, a homeowner here in Beacon, and own one rental property down the street from our home. We both moved to Beacon because we were priced out of where we lived before, because we both work in the service industry, and we've worked in the service industry for years. We have low-paying jobs. We were fortunate enough to get a family inheritance and to be able to buy property when Beacon was still affordable, and for that we're forever grateful. And we're concerned about this law because we're not against people getting an opportunity to get assistance if they feel like they're being unjustly evicted. What we're concerned with is that we will have to incur the cost of hiring an attorney if we feel like we need to raise the rent because we have to do a major repair on the house, because our houses are old, and we don't have a lot of money in savings to just do the repair. It is our business, it is our livelihood. It supplements our low-wage jobs. The other concern that I have is for the city of Beacon, and the fact that this law as it's written is a concern to attorneys, and if the city gets sued, the cost will go to the city, and that ultimately goes to the taxpayers, which is all of us, and we will have to pay that additional money as well. There are a lot of reasons why, limiting how much people can raise the rent is not good. One of the chief reasons is that people will not spend the necessary money to keep the properties up, and they will just say, I can't afford to put that money out up front, not knowing whether I can get it back or not. And that's going to lead to decline in the property conditions and then decline in the property values. Otherwise, I think the city should focus on cracking down on short-term rentals. There are 78 single dwelling rentals available on Airbnb as of today. And one of them is across the street from my house. The host charges $685 a night with a 2-night minimum to stay in his house. And on his site, he says, I live in Brooklyn. He doesn't even live in Beacon. He doesn't even hide the fact that he doesn't live in Beacon. And I feel like it would be a better use of time and resources to crack down on the short-term rentals and make those units available to people who actually want to live here and actually want to be a part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Barbara Fisher?
Hello, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, members of the audience. My name is Barbara Fisher. I'm a 16-year resident of Beacon. I'm a homeowner, I'm a small business owner, and I own the building in which I operate my business out of. It is a commercial residential mixed property, and that's what brings me here today, very specifically with concerns. So I have a couple of things I'd like to discuss, that being first. So with commercial building mortgages, it works very different than when you buy a house and you decide it's going to be your sole occupancy. In order to get a commercial mortgage from a bank, you're required to demonstrate that the amount of the cost of the building you can earn and rent 10 times the rent equals the mortgage that you can qualify for. So for instance, suppose somebody gets a mortgage on Main Street and it's for $1 million, and they have, say, 3 residential units upstairs and 1 storefront on the first floor. By proposing the rules that you have in place, you're essentially limiting the landlord's ability to raise the rent of the apartments. Okay, but I suspect that rent roll through that mortgage has to be, you have to demonstrably show to the bank that you're making this much money and that the mortgage is still not a risky investment for them. While I mortgaged the building that I have with TEG, I've had to produce tax documents and rent roll documents pretty much every year as a form of an audit for the entire time that I've had this loan. If at some point I'm unable to demonstrate that I am earning enough money on the building to keep the investment safe, there's questions as to whether or not they'll extend the arm of the loan. There are a lot of intricacies that I'm sure people have experienced in different ways, but for me, I was a math teacher before I opened the butcher shop. I tried really hard to buy properties on Main Street. I got priced out back in the day, it was 8 or 9 years ago. So I purchased a building not on Main Street. I have a 3-bedroom apartment that's upstairs from the building, and so between the two of them, according to the bank, for me to be able to sell my property right now at market value, I have to raise the rent on my business and on my tenants by 25%, because they're not going to give anybody a loan for the building that I have with the current state of rent that I have happening. I'm pretty much fine with that because I really right now have no intentions of selling the building. But my real concern comes with the clause of tenants don't have to get evicted if somebody sells their property. And this is where I think things are going to get kind of tricky because, well, let me finish the other thing first off. So with regards to this rent roll, so suppose the Main Street building, the $1 million, they have the 4 properties, they split the rent between them $2,500 each. By limiting the ability to raise the rent on the apartments, which might be the right thing to do, you're putting the onus on the small business downstairs that's going to have to increase their rent 10 to 12% in that time frame in order to keep the rent roll on the building appropriate to appease the bank and to appease all of the components of all of the mess that comes along with financing all of this kind of stuff. So then you're suggesting, or to me that would say that that small business in 3 years might just be getting established and started and being perfectly okay with having this particular kind of increase put into their rent. Every year you're saying, okay, you're going to raise it 8%, you're going to raise it 8%. And a lot of the small businesses will sign off and say yes to a 3 to 8% increase per year is pretty typical on a commercial lease. None of this is going to have any effect on these commercial leases because there's no legislation that has any, the Consumer Protection Acts don't affect small businesses at all. So you guys, I know we're talking about community, but I fear that there's more of an impact here than anybody's discussing, and that you're again putting the onus of paying for this on the small businesses in Beacon. And I can tell you with regards to COVID, I am ready to be done. Like honestly, I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted. I've been cursed out more in the last 2 months in my store than I ever have in my entire life. Like just because people's tempers are on edge and from all of the things that we've been asked to put in place. Part of my business plan to keep the butcher shop running was to make sure that I had some rent upstairs so I could pay the mortgage so I didn't lose the building in the process of losing the business and then lose the entire investment, all of my life savings. I put everything I have into Beacon. Like I said, I got here 16 years ago. I came in 2006. I have 2 children that are 11 and 9 that were both born here and raised. This is partly my 401k because I don't have an option as a small business owner really for a reasonable 401k in this situation. I can only put so much in and get so much back, and it works different without employer
15
matching
seconds.
and so forth. So what I'm really suggesting is that it's going to affect the community in bigger ways than maybe we're discussing. Pushing this on small businesses is scary for me. And then as the landlord myself, it makes me reactionarily want to raise the rent of the tenant upstairs to keep me sort of protected so I might be able to sell. There has to be a better solution, and there has to be more clearly defined language that will not constitute a void of vagueness claim with state charters and making the law impassable in the first place. So I would encourage us to slow down and have more discussion. And I know everybody's in a hurry, but this law isn't going to stop the eviction moratorium. People who haven't paid their rent are still going to be evicted. People who haven't paid their rent are really likely not as big of a percentage, or likely the biggest percentage of people being evicted. Most landlords in Beacon are small, are tiny. I would encourage us to look into this a little further and really, I mean, hell, I talked to Dan this afternoon on the phone, and neither one of us could decide if my building was affected or not through
Barbara,
half of
finish
the
up.
conversation. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much. Okay, folks. So let's hold the claps. We got more people to come, and we want to be respectful of them. Is it Lori? Lori Dick here in the back somewhere? Hey there.
Good evening, everyone. So Lori Dick, Ward 1 resident. I don't have much to add. I just wanted to throw my voice behind the many eloquent speakers who've already spoken in support of good cause eviction. Wanted to correct the record on one part, and I know the City Council knows this well, but the vast majority of tenants here in Beacon appear in court unrepresented, and that hasn't been changed. Unfortunately, as grateful as I am for the money that the city has put toward some paralegal assistance, that is simply what is being offered is someone available to provide some information so that tenants can have better represent themselves. Nobody is providing free lawyers, unfortunately, for tenants here in Beacon. Secondly, I just wanted to say that for all of those good landlords out here who have the best interests of their good tenants at heart and who don't want to evict someone without good cause or raise their rent unconscionably in order to force them out of their apartment, there's absolutely no reason for you to fear this protection for tenants. When I moved here 10 years ago, I had the privilege of being able to buy my own home. And after some years of renting, and I guess, have been thinking about that a little lately, about how I will never, as a result of that, I will never be told in 1 or 2 months' time I have to move out of my home and find someplace new to live. And that privilege of that peace of mind, that so long as I pay my mortgage, so long as I pay my property taxes, I can continue to grow my roots, to build bonds with my community, is based on that wealth that got me that home ownership to begin with. And that is not right. And this law can do a little bit to fix that. So I hope you will all pass it. Thank you.
Thanks. So, is it Martin? Hanley? Duchess Terrace? Martin? Yeah, it's definitely a Martin. 25 Duchess Terrace? I'm sorry. No, I've got a 25 Duchess Terrace. Okay. There's a Van Nydek. Is it Michael? Haley? Okay. I got a Michael Elton. Looks like it's not a Beacon address. Eaton? Yeah. Rock Tavern, right?
Hello, my name is Michael Eaton. Can you hear me? No. No? Sorry. Is that better? Do I need to take off my mask?
Take your time.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Michael Eaton. I'm from Rock Tavern, but I'm considering moving to Beacon this year. I'm here to advocate for the good cause eviction policy to be put into effect by the City of Beacon. Housing is a human right, and we must reflect that in the policies that are meant to support our communities. This policy could save lives, such as the 17 people who died in the Bronx apartment fire on January 9th. Residents had repeatedly complained about inadequate heating, and the fire was caused by a defective space heater. With good cause eviction, these complaints and issues of safety would have to have been given appropriate action. Tenants need more protection and security to be able to address unsafe living conditions that are in a landlord's responsibility. There has been concern and criticism that this policy will affect small landlords who make a living from renting out their properties. Although this is unlikely, as it is designed to prevent unreasonable management of housing. I can empathize with the few of them who are worried about change and how it could affect their business. However, it is important to note that they are a small minority amongst the wealthy corporations who own most of the properties that Americans rent. It is also valuable to put the circumstances of being a small landlord into perspective and recognize the societal leverage required to invest your livelihood into renting out property and the accepted risk of that. There should not be an inherent risk in renting due to unpredictable price raises and short notice evictions, as that is not a reality that the many Americans living paycheck to paycheck can afford. Good cause eviction will provide a more reasonable standard of security for tenants, should not affect landlords who are taking good care of their properties, and only put pressure on those who are jeopardizing their tenants' safety. Please set this precedent of prioritizing humanity over profit in an industry which has been silencing people by threatening their basic needs for housing. Vote for good cause eviction. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Donna, the other Donna, right?
My glasses are stuck in my mask. 1 second.
Just step away from the mic and we'll pick it up that way. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Donna Minkowitz. In my opinion, this is the most urgent issue currently facing us in Beacon. My wife and I have both been renters all our lives, and we've both experienced losing an apartment several times due to unregulated rent increases. We lost another apartment due to the landlord selling the building, and we did not have such a law in place in New York City, and we lost our housing on little notice. It's clear that in Beacon, as well as in other cities, our economic system means that landlords will seek the highest amount of profit possible in the absence of serious rent regulation. If we had moved to Beacon today instead of 4 years ago, we would be unable to afford it because market rates are currently higher than the rates we were paying in Brooklyn. We were lucky enough to find an unusually caring pair of landlords, but many, including the majority of people who grew up here, have not been so lucky. In Beacon, 2 of my closest friends recently lost their housing due to extreme rent increases. One of them lost his housing twice with 2 different apartments. He is an elderly poet who wound up having to leave Beacon. And it's unfortunately all too clear that unless the City Council steps up, Beacon will soon be completely transformed into a place only the wealthy can call home. Many, many Beaconites have already been displaced and forced to move elsewhere. When this happens, the entire community suffers because this intense displacement destroys the bonds of neighborliness, friendship, and fellow feeling that draw people together. It has drastic consequences for the entire body politic. It makes neighbor hate and distrust neighbor, cutting an ugly wedge through the thing I love most about Beacon, the friendliness and neighborliness here. Gentrification creates a basis for a hateful, destructive politics, both here and nationwide. Regarding the concerns the mayor has raised regarding the supposed unconstitutionality of the law, such serious legal scholars as the ACLU and the faculty of the CUNY Law School say he's wrong. I would submit that they are greater authorities on the Constitution than the authors of the sole opinion the mayor refers to, the New York Conference of Mayors, a political body whose members are dependent on contributions from developers. As you know, the cities of Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, and Kingston have already passed good cause eviction with no undue consequences. More than that, tenants and poor people in Beacon need these protections. This city will become a much bleaker, barer, and less vibrant and diverse place unless the City Council takes the lead and passes this law. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron Ashoka?
Good evening. My name is Erin Ashoka, and I've addressed the council multiple times on the topic of good cause eviction. So tonight I'm actually reading a statement from a fellow community member, Catherine Stankowski, a resident of Ward 4. Members of Beacon City Council, I'm writing to you today to ask you to pass good cause eviction here in the city of Beacon. This is my 13th year as a resident of this city, and I'm a renter, an immigrant, and a single parent. I've raised my daughter in the Beacon City School District from her kindergarten year when we arrived to this, her senior year as an honor student at Beacon High. Each year, my daughter has lost classmates to the rising costs of living in Beacon, kids whose parents were unable to keep up with rising rents or whose homes were turned into short-term rentals for the enrichment of out-of-town property owners. I've lost friends too, successive waves of people, many of whom were born and raised in Beacon, who have been priced out of their hometown. People who could not afford larger spaces here as their families grew and left for other cities and states. People who were ready to purchase their first home but were unable to compete with cash buyers in an inflated market. People whose homes were sold by their landlords during the pandemic and there were simply no non-luxury rental units available for them to move into. I was particularly moved to write you this letter because of the overlooked plight of local single mothers, some still in the midst of separation and divorce, who are simply unable to find or keep affordable housing within the city of Beacon that would allow them to maintain their and their children's social support networks and community. Single mothers, who make up the vast majority of single-parent households, are particularly vulnerable to the crush of gentrification. National statistics show that fewer than half of custodial parents who are owed child support receive the full amount, and with a quick search showing the current costs of two-bedroom apartments in Beacon ranging from $1,950 to almost $4,000 a month, with the cost of a studio at an unbelievable $1,850 a month. The cost of renting in Beacon on a limited income is prohibitive. Single motherhood remains the strongest determinant of female poverty in the United States, and almost 25% of single mothers live below the poverty line, with the highest rates of poverty experienced by Black, Latina, and Indigenous women. I recognize that this council has been grappling for years with how to address gentrification, from limiting short-term rentals to negotiating with prospective developers over affordable housing provisions. I also realize that the members of this council have themselves lost friends, workers, and valued community members to the rising costs of living and the scarcity of affordable rental housing. We're all aware of the shape of this problem and know that there are no easy solutions. It's my belief that good cause eviction legislation will help to provide some deserved peace of mind to responsible renters while not punishing responsible landlords. Guaranteeing good tenants that their leases will be renewed, unless there is good cause not to, gives families some stability in allowing them to plan more than a year at a time. Ensuring that good tenants have access to stable housing keeps our community stable as well. It keeps kids in school with their friends. It keeps valued community members who contribute to Beacon through volunteerism, entrepreneurship, and friendship, part of the social fabric of our little city. Capping annual rental increases gives working-class renters and families a chance to stay in their homes. We all know people who are forced to leave Beacon following news that their rent would be increasing by $300 or more a month, leaving them unable to pay. By keeping in place the many good causes that landlords may have to evict bad tenants, such as non-payment of rent, destruction of property, etc., landlords will be able to continue protecting their property. I'll close this letter with a well-known statement from Mahatma Gandhi. It's a cliche for a reason. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. Beacon's most vulnerable have been facing a stark choice for at least the last decade. Agree to live with housing insecurity, skyrocketing rents, and/or predatory landlords, or get out. Our community deserves better than that. Safe, affordable housing is a human right that should not only be guaranteed to those fortunate enough to own property. It's my belief that good cause eviction legislation can help to level the playing field and keep Beaconites where they belong, right here in Beacon. Thank you for your service to our community through your work on this council. Catherine Stankowski, Ward 4 resident. Speaking for myself, I urge the council to not delay a vote.
15 seconds.
It's very important that we pass this as soon as possible. We know that there are tenants currently being evicted, and they deserve the right to have a day in court. So I urge you to not delay and pass this as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Vikas Ashoka?
Hello, Mayor, Council, and staff, and everyone here today. My name is Vikas Ashoka. I'm a resident and homeowner in Beacon. We decided to move here and stay here because we fell in love with this city for many reasons. But primarily, the reason was that this is a community that cares, that values care and connection. I moved to Beacon early in the pandemic and quickly got involved in Mutual Aid Beacon. And through there, I saw what community care looks like in Beacon. It looks like sharing food with neighbors. It looks like driving someone to the doctor when they need it. I've seen it outside of the organizations I've been involved with. In the darkest days of the pandemic, I regularly received and shared home-cooked meals from friends. My friends have checked in on me when I've had a rough time, or when things opened back up again and we were out of town, we had friends come and check in on our dogs. All of these things combined, some are small, some are large, but they're all necessary to keep a city safe and healthy and stable. Good cause eviction is a natural fit for a city that wants to promote sustainability and stability. It'll help keep good neighbors and friends in their homes. I want to ask you all here today to think about the relationships in your life that you depend on here in the city. Who volunteers with you or takes care of your kids? Whose children play with your children after school? Who do you share a meal with? Who walks your dogs when you're stuck at work? Good cause eviction will help keep those folks around. Those folks pay their rent, they're good citizens and neighbors. But what happens when we lose them through no cause of their own? Who will we lean on in those times of struggle? When the next pandemic hits, when the next flood comes, when the next heat wave arrives. Without them, our relationships will fray, will become isolated and adrift. So I ask you to pass good cause eviction in the spirit of Beacon to help keep those friends and family around. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Jelliff?
Jessica Jelliff. I live in Ward 4. Hi. And I am standing before you without my glasses to, so sorry. Hi. I can't hear myself. In favor of good cause eviction legislation. Myself and my husband and our toddler at that time moved to Beacon in 2014. We moved here because we fell in love with the community, with the people, with the arts that we found here. We made connections with people here that were crucial to our quality of life. The people of the city of Beacon were just as important to us as the buildings and the mountain and the river. The people are the history and the vitality of this city. Passing good cause is about embracing and protecting that very history and vitality of the Beacon that we all love. My family moved to Beacon because we could afford to buy a house here. We were very, very lucky to have been able to do so. We were able to stay because the house had a rental unit within it that gave us the extra income we needed to financially survive in this new and uncertain location. Having rented in New York City, we based our yearly rental increase on a rent-controlled apartment that we had lived in, which seemed fair. Our tenants have been really great. Again, we count ourselves lucky, becoming almost family in certain situations, and we have wanted them to stay. This gave our family stability and security, having the same tenants over longer periods of time. Having lived in 2 different rental locations in New York City, one rent-controlled and one not even rent-stabilized, we understood firsthand how the rent we paid directly affected our quality of life. One allowed us to live and breathe within the city, that city, and the other made us sweat and slowly but surely squeezed us out of that city that we loved, the very apartment that our son was born in. This experience and knowledge is what helped guide our rental increase policy as new landlords, and what brings me to speak here tonight. Passing good cause is about housing as a human right and preserving the fabric of our communities. It is also about the quality of life for people not able to afford to buy in a volatile real estate market. We must, as a community, work together to take care of all of us, not just prop up and inflate the revenue of the real estate investors and developers. Good cause will help take care of the renters of Beacon without hurting the rentees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it Pravin? I see a non-Beacon address, but I can't quite pronounce the name. That'd be great. Now, tell us who you are.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Good evening. Thanks so much for your time. My name's Bravin Runga, and I'm with For the Many. We're a grassroots organization with members here in Beacon and across the Hudson Valley. I first want to just start by saying thank you to folks. I first off and most importantly thank the tenants who have showed incredible courage by coming out tonight and making their voices heard. I thank the activists who are out here tonight from For the Many, DSA, and our partners at Community Voices Heard. And I want to thank the members of this city council who have at long last brought good cause eviction to public hearing, particularly those members of the council who have been championing good cause eviction legislation. The stories that you have heard and will continue to hear from past and present tenants of this city demonstrates the need for this law to be passed more than anything that I can say. With the eviction moratorium expired and the ongoing inflation surge, rising prices of everything from groceries to gas, it is imperative that this council act tonight to pass good cause eviction and give working people basic protections from this crisis. This law was first introduced in the summer of last year with broad support from both the city council and from the public who were clamoring that this council stand up for tenant protections. Despite this, good cause has been repeatedly delayed because the law has faced a deliberate and concerted opposition from greedy landlords, corporate real estate, and conflicted city officials. They have tried to subvert the broad public support for this law and the democratic will of this council. The organized opposition to good cause has used underhanded legal maneuvers and the threat of lawsuit to try and bully this council and this community. They have spread misinformation about what this law is, such as referring to it as rent control or a license for tenants to conduct illegal activity. And they have tried to scare small, responsible landlords into thinking that this law is somehow unfair to them. Let me be absolutely clear. The threat of lawsuit that is being made is nothing more than a political tactic, and a bad faith one at that, employed by greedy landlords, corporate real estate, and certain city officials with ulterior motives to try and defeat this broadly popular and imminently needed law. Every single time that government tries to do something to help working people, from the Civil Rights Act to the New Deal to the HSTPA, they have faced similar bad faith opposition from the wealthy and the powerful. I ask that this council show courage in the face of opposition. Listen to the housing attorneys who continue to defend and who wrote the template upon which this law is based, and to do what the voters elected them to do and stand up to protect tenants' rights. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I got Rochelle Tucker-Young. I got Kevin Young after that.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I know my time is limited. I'd like to tell you how I sacrificed to buy my 3-family house in 1985 by living in a rooming house and sending my son to live with my mother and aunt. I am sure there are other landlords who could reflect on their sacrifice to buy their property. Why is the board compounding problems of this community of landlords and tenants now that we are at the end of the rent moratorium? Some landlords did not get any money from the New York State Emergency Rent Assistance Program. Some tenants have had their rent paid by the program and are not paying their current rent now. No way this good cause law is going to help Beacon's tenants. If anything, small building landlords are not going to rent out their apartments, causing less housing inventory and converting their multi-dwelling to single-family homes, and in some cases, tearing the property down completely. All the board is doing is making it more difficult for tenants to find affordable housing. They cannot afford the recently built properties, and they are not artists getting great rental rates. Tenants are already protected by the laws in New York State from bad landlords. We are all are not bad landlords. Miss Nancy Rossler, the real estate agent that spoke, she said it well. Miss Barb, of Barb's Butchery Shop, she said it well. All you're doing is you're taking away property. Really, you're taking the property owner's rights to control their property. All right. My husband and I mean, he's been with me 37 years down this road, and all our rents are way below market because it's an old house. I mean, old house. It's been renovated over the years, but there's only one gas meter. So I pay for all the tenants' gas, and one side is oil. And I pay for that tenant's oil because everything is one. It's like 2 gas furnaces and 1 oil. And 1 apartment is a pain in the neck because I have to ask the most rent, because they're getting a lot of space for what they, a lot of space, and a lot of the utilities being included except electricity. So really it's like over a certain amount that really the average person can't afford, that work as the ones that have been speaking, they probably couldn't afford it unless they come in with all these roommates, okay? All these unrelated people that you don't know who's living in your house at the end of the day. All right? So it's not fair to the small landlords in this community and the good landlords. If you're interested in caring for the people that's looking for this good cause, then why those nice apartments on 9D, you gotta be an artist, they get first choice. Where's the homes for the working people, the apartments for the working people? So when you allow people to build these expensive apartments on Main Street and wherever around Beacon, you should have said you have to build affordable housing too.
15 seconds.
Don't put it on our backs. And it is rent control. If you're telling somebody how much they can increase their rent and what they can do and how they can do it, you're going to see less. I'll just tear my house down. You have a park. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Young? You know how to speak, Kevin? Nice to see you. Giselle Martinez?
Good evening. My name is, can you hear me?
Just speak closer to the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. No? Should I take my mask off? Okay, there you go. Good evening. My name is Giselle Martinez, and I'm actually a Newburgh City Council member. I was recently inaugurated in January, and I also work for the New York State Legislature, and part of the constituency that I help on a daily basis includes Beacon. I actually look forward to collaborating with you all in the future for future projects, especially considering that Beacon is our sister city. But for tonight, I am actually here to ask that you support good cause eviction. Although I am not a member, I'm not a resident of Beacon, I am here in support as a neighboring council member to share the experiences and the positive impact that good cause eviction has already made in Newburgh. This can also become a reality for Beacon residents in need. I work very closely with For the Many, Mid-Hudson Valley DSA, and our Newburgh City Council member, Anthony Grice, to bring awareness to the hardships that tenants face. Newburgh passed good cause eviction in October of 2021. Many people have some misconceptions about this law, and I don't want to reiterate, but again, good cause just means that a landlord must have a good reason to evict a tenant from their housing. It doesn't protect tenants who break the terms of their lease, such as failure to paying rent or performing illegal activities. It doesn't stop an owner from selling a home that they no longer want to live in, or a new owner that would like to use their home for personal use. It doesn't prevent investment or development or new construction that's set out at the market rate rent. And this law is not equivalent to the eviction moratorium, and it is not rent control. And I say that because, again, part of my job working in the legislature, we helped several constituents in need of rental assistance, both tenants and landlords. I received all their emails in support of good cause, not just at the state level, but calling for it at a municipal level. Since the passage of good cause, many stories were shared with me, including the sudden and unfair rent hikes that forced families to leave. I had families that were coming to ask for help because their rent was raised suddenly from $850 to $1350. Tenants who, came home from work one day and their locks were changed and their belongings were thrown out into the street. Many of these tenants that I was in touch with, again, were tenants of color, have come from an immigrant background and or had a language barrier. And to say the least, they were taken advantage of. Many of them feared retaliation, and because they were afraid to speak out, many of them were unfairly evicted. After hearing about good cause eviction, these tenants were equipped with the resources and the information necessary to protect themselves against unfair evictions. We informed them how to never self-evict and how only a court order can remove them from their home. And I trust that judges who review these cases will determine whether or not it is a good reason to evict a family from their home. This law is more about accountability. We know that not all landlords are bad. And of course, given in my community, we have several great landlords that help their tenants. However, we can't let the ones that are bad slip through these cracks. This will ensure that our most vulnerable will not be displaced. And in fact, it's not a secret that in Newburgh we are facing a housing crisis, but it's not just Newburgh, it's cities across the entire state. And by performing a housing study, we performed a housing study, and it determined one of the recommendations was to pass good cause to combat our housing crisis. And most of all, as someone who has to make decisions for their constituency, one of the best things that I could have done was support this, because hearing the relief of families' voices, seeing the relief on their faces when they're able to come to me and ask me for help, and I'm able to redirect them to someone when I know that they're not going to be thrown out into the street, families who have several kids, families who just immigrated into our community or who moved from the city into our community. It just helps me, it helped me better understand the need, and also helps me go to sleep better, just knowing that people are going to stay in their homes and they're going to have somewhere to, that they can have someone to go to in case they're ever they're ever taken advantage
seconds.
of. But thank you for hearing me out tonight, and have a great evening.
Thank you for coming. So is it Rem? Is that the first name? Renee. Oh, okay.
That confused me.
Good evening. My name is Renee Mejia, and I am a community organizer with For the Many, specifically working to organize for tonight's event here, the public hearing for good cause eviction. So, of course, I am here in support of good cause eviction because Beacon is a wonderful city that has people who have lived here for years, people who have made this place their home and want to continue to make it their home, just like I have made my home Newburgh. I like to say that I was born in Newburgh, raised in Newburgh, and will die in Newburgh. And from what I've heard tonight from tenants and families, is there are a lot of people here that want the same thing. They want to be able to have a community, a home, where they can continue to prosper and grow, but not just themselves and their family. Beacon is a beautiful city with beautiful people. But from what I've witnessed tonight, from what I've seen just back there, is that there are a lot of people here tonight that are rude, that don't want to listen to those who want the same rights as they do, to have those fair chances. And I think it's very unfair that there are people back there talking over folks when they're just trying here to plead their case as to why they should have a fair chance to be in their home. We all don't have that same opportunity to grow up and inherit homes or inherit finances where we get a chance to buy homes. Some of us will continue to be renters for the rest of our life, and some of us will always be under the foot of those who have that opportunity that we never had. It is important that we make the right decisions to protect those who at the moment cannot protect themselves. We are at the mercy of those who make a business out of owning homes, who make a business out of making sure that people have a roof over their head. It's a shame that we, not just here in Beacon, but throughout all of New York State, must still advocate for basic human rights, that being a safe place to go home to at night. Tonight, I have a home to go to, but that doesn't mean that that could not be true if we did not pass good cause eviction in Newburgh. I think this is just basic legislation that is so simple and easy to pass for everyone. The only people that fear it are those who are bad landlords. If you are a good landlord, you are not going to fear having to evict your tenant. If you really have tenants who are so good as you claim, then why are you concerned that you're going to have to raise your rent, or concerned that your tenant is going to have to be evicted at the end of the month? What people are concerned about is their pockets, their profits. And it's a shame that we are siding with folks who are putting profit over people. So I urge you all tonight, please side with basic human rights, basic human necessity, because housing is a human right, and we should not have to fight over that. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Hunt.
Hi. I'm a resident of Ward 4. I moved to Beacon 3 years ago, and I feel really lucky to speak here tonight. I have met incredible people in this community that are so inspiring, and most of them have grown up here and been able to stay here and live here and teach us how to walk up here and speak out and nurture the students that live here and get involved. And this is an incredible opportunity to be able to stand here. My 3 direct neighbors have also grown up here. The one that lives across from me, she passed away last year, and her house is now for sale for $630,000. Another house 2 doors down from me sold for $600,000 late last year. Meanwhile, sorry, it's really scary. Meanwhile, the neighbor that's directly next to me, he lives in a 2-unit, and his landlord, wow. Okay, so he has, his upstairs roommates are squirrels, birds. He has a waterfall that flows from the 2nd unit into his unit, which sounds like a water feature, but it's not. It's a hole in his roof. And he pays $1,000 a month. His landlord comes when there's hurricanes and puts a tarp over his roof, and that seems to be his idea of like, okay. So, sorry, John, if you're listening, I'm kind of blowing up your spot right now. He wants to stay. He grew up on the street, but he's gonna have to leave because his landlord isn't doing anything, and if he stops paying rent, he's gonna be kicked out. So, yeah, I'm in favor of passing this legislation. I think at the end of the day, helping the most vulnerable people in this community, a lot of them who have lived here their whole lives, why wouldn't we help them right now? And for all the people who are concerned about what will happen to them, whether they're landlords or not, I think everybody here is really passionate about the community and would be there to help, you know, the next phase of this, whatever that might be. So, yeah, I am just here to hope that you pass this legislation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Diane Fullen?
Good evening. I'm Diane Filan. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I felt obligated to say a few words. I am a landlord. I've been a landlord in Beacon for over 35 years. I also have a real estate and property consultant business. Now, my rents are currently and have been through time 20 to 40% below market value. Now, we just heard a good speech from Central Hudson, how they're raising rates because the rates are raising. A lot of my properties, I provide heat and some utilities. Now, right now, oil went from $1.49 a gallon to $3.35 a gallon. You know, taxes, water bills, everything goes up. And with the cap at the 5%, now if somebody's wanting to make more of a profit, but if somebody actually has just cause to raise their rents a certain amount, not because they're greedy, but because they are trying to continue to provide affordable housing, I think that the law in theory has some flaws. There's theory and there's reality. Now, I work on a daily basis with other property owners in and around Beacon in the Hudson Valley, and they are currently trying to rent apartments. And I can tell you that I have this conversation with potential tenants on a regular basis, that the Tenant Protection Act of 2019 has actually, in reality, hurt some form of tenants. Now, there are tenants that want to stay in their homes or their apartments or their units and want a right to stay there. But there are also tenants that want to move because maybe they want to relocate because of their job, maybe their family has increased in size or their needs have been changed, maybe they want to downsize. Now what happens is there's a strict criteria from landlords, not so much myself, I work with other people, that they want certain things in place. They want a certain rental history, they want a certain income level, they want a certain time at their job, they want a certain credit score. Now what about the people that have had hard times because of COVID or because of divorces or family history? They are not being considered in the same way they were before because landlords are saying that it's so difficult to get someone out that I don't want to take a chance. They can no longer get people to co-sign for them. They can't pay 3 months in advance like they used to in the past, and they're having difficulty. And I have a conversation with them saying, unfortunately, that some of the laws that were passed to protect tenants are actually now harming them. So I would say that you really have to take in consideration the reality, and maybe there's some work to be done, you know, regarding this, because there are some issues that may make things difficult moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's everybody who's on the list here. Do we have, I'm sorry. Tell me the name. Yeah, I called your name. 25 Duchess Terrace?
Lee, I think Ben brought that up before certain people came in, so you may have additional speakers. And you have 6 online or 7 online.
Is it Martin Fowler? Oh, okay. Sorry, come on up. Yeah. My omission, sorry. I'm sorry.
Check, check.
Yeah, no problem.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council,
Yep.
Beacon community. My name is Martin. I live in Ward 2 in Beacon. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the proposed law concerning rental properties and to prohibit eviction without good cause. My partner and I moved here 5 years ago after a decade living in New York City, and moved here seeking to improve our quality of life and encounter trees with more regularity. What we found here was a vibrant, steadfast, and impossibly creative community. We found a significant diversity of thought, of income, of race, of gender, all in a unified community of folks willing to navigate a nationally divided politics, to help each other out. Shovel driveways, play pickup sports, create makeshift carpools, feed one another, or just navigate the length of Main Street on Spirit of Beacon Day, or with the green team. Many folks who have lived here much longer than us, and many their whole lives, are being regularly displaced. You might think, Martin, aren't you just the kind of newcomer displacing folks now? And I wouldn't fault you for thinking so, but the fact is, if I were trying to move here today, I couldn't. I couldn't afford to make this leap at the range of prices now on offer for new rentals, listings that only last a few days at a time online these days. I'd like to quote an article from the Times-Union from last summer. If a tenant has been living in the same rental for several years with minimal increases in rent and are now looking for a new apartment, they may be shocked at the current market pricing for a similar unit. Samantha of Beacon is one of those people. For 7 years, she's lived with her kids in a 3-bedroom unit that costs $16.75 a month. Her landlord decided to sell the property and gave her a 60-day notice to find a new place to live. The notice came to an end on June 30th, and Samantha has still yet to sign a lease, leaving her homeless. "We've always lived in Beacon," said Samantha. "All of my kids went to school here, and my son is about to start his senior year, and we got kicked out. I spent the last 2 months looking for places." For Samantha, the market excised her from her and her son's community, this community. Opponents of this law might cite the lack of available housing, especially during the eviction moratorium, for preventing Samantha from finding adequate housing. I ask, why should the market be allowed to force her out of her community in the first place? Good cause should have protected Samantha and her family and could protect other members of the community like her. Sorry. For me, as someone working in professional music and audio, I was lucky enough, even pre-pandemic, to work largely remotely. I didn't lose work in the last few years, and if anything, I've been doing okay. I say this to point out that even with that being the case, that I am as lucky as I am, even I am not nearly out of danger of being pushed out of this community. So for those who have experienced any serious hardships in the last several years, I can only imagine what witnessing this relentless displacement of friends, of classmates, of family members, of lifelong community must feel like. This legislation can be an effective tool to help keep what is left of this community intact, safe, and secure. I urge you to consider community first and to finalize this legislation, put it up for a vote, and adopt it as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak? So, okay, we've got some hands. All right, so why don't we just start from the left and we'll head over to the right, all right? But do tell us your name and where you live, all right? Or at least the street, so we can get it on the record.
Hi, my name is Sean Kraft. I live on Wilk Street. We own and manage about 8 units here in Beacon as part of a plan to divert IRA investment for our retirements into the local economy. We use 100% local contractors. We pay local taxes, and this too is a large part of community here in Beacon. We're very fortunate in our landlord role to provide this service to the community. We have lived here for over 20 years. Being a landlord, in fact, is the best way that I have found where I can really, truly, and directly help people. Our tenants are great people who are very capable of negotiating terms, know their rights, and ask for what they need. We feel that this well-intentioned law will harm tenants in 2 major ways. One, it'll make it harder to gain tenancy and to find apartments because landlords, knowing that their rental agreements are basically going to be fixed for however long the tenant wants to stay in the apartment, are going to ratchet up the requirements for the leases, as other people have said here tonight. This is going to harm the poorest and younger tenants disproportionately to anybody else who is trying to rent. Also, number two, local landlords like us will have one more reason to sell now more than ever, likely to a corporate buyer who does not care about Beacon at all, has an out-of-town management, has out-of-town contractors, lawyers, and everything else. This will destroy many interdependent relationships within the community, weakening the fabric that makes Beacon better than many other places to live. Local landlord is better in many ways. For example, our tenants call me anytime they need to on the cell phone for whatever they need to. Corporate landlords will replace this with click here to contact us button, and people will not get the service that they really deserve. Also, in my opinion, rents are not really that out of control in line with inflation over the years. We were prospective tenants here in Beacon in 1999, and I did the calculations for what the rent they were asking for here as opposed to a one-bedroom apartment now, and it's roughly 4% increase per year over that time, which is, give or take, roughly equal to inflation. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for letting me speak. My name is David Brazil. I'm a pastor, and I live on Cross Street. And I was born and raised in the Hudson Valley, but my work has taken me to different places across the country, including Oakland, California, and New Orleans, Louisiana, where I moved to Beacon from. And everywhere I've lived, there has been this conversation about just cause and the same kind of legislation proposed. And everywhere it's the same conversation and the same dynamics. It's red herrings about ways that it will constrain landlords when ultimately this kind of legislation doesn't constrain so-called good landlords. It only constrains bad actor landlords. It helps tenants. And it doesn't hamstring landlords from evicting tenants who are actually creating difficulty. So I'm here, of course, to support good cause eviction, in part because I am a pastor and try to walk according to the Gospel of Matthew, which says, where Christ says, "As you have done for the least of these, so you do for me." So when we remember that this kind of law is helpful to those who are most vulnerable in the community, to those who are economically disenfranchised, and particularly to African American folks and other people of color, one of the great things about Beacon and the Hudson Valley is the demographic diversity. But as many people have said, and as is obvious, the demographics are shifting. Beacon is changing. And it's really important to work to preserve those things. And something else that I can share that I've been reflecting on and listening to the conversation tonight is that, in both Oakland, where I lived, and New Orleans, confront the dynamics of gentrification, of a speculative real estate market, also of short-term rentals. And that creates a real challenge that you all have to be the deliberators of, because just like those places, Beacon is a very unique and precious place. That's why people want to live here. But when you only have structures that allow wealthy people to come, as well as the speculative real estate that helps people who are wealthy to come here, then the character of the place changes and ultimately evaporates. And you will not have the same Beacon, because the people who make the place what it is will be gone. And the only people left will be those who can afford it, and then there won't actually be anything here. The thing that people are fighting to preserve will be gone. So it's really important for that reason, as well as the many others that people have spoken, that you all deliberate and adopt the good cause. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. So, all right, so there's one on this side, and then we cross over? Okay, there's another one on this side, so why don't you go after that person?
Hello, my name is Nicole Wooten, and thank you all so much for listening to us all tonight. I support good cause eviction. I think it is straightforward, provides stability, protects the vulnerable, leaves plenty of wiggle room legally for some of the exceptional circumstances that have been raised tonight. And I am a renter and have rented here for 6 years and would appreciate being able to continue living in this area. So thank you for the consideration, and I urge you all to support it as well.
Thank you. To the gentleman in the back.
Good evening. My name is Connor Gillis. I'm with the Dutchess County Association of Realtors. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
In 2019, New York passed the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, which significantly overhauled rental laws, limiting landlords' ability to evict tenants. Among other things, HSTPA requires landlords to notify tenants if a lease will not be renewed or if rent will be increased by 5% or more. It permits a judge to stay the issuance of a warrant to evict a tenant for up to 1 year if the tenant shows substantial hardship in finding new accommodations. Instead of helping tenants, Beacon's proposal will reduce affordable housing and discourage investment, adding to the struggles already present in the industry that has been hammered by the pandemic. It will strip landlords and property owners of their rights by guaranteeing leases for life for tenants. It will force smaller landlords to get out of the business, leaving corporate landlords who may not be as attentive to tenants and less willing to work with them as the only ones who can afford to be in the business. The city attorney has said that Beacon does not have the legal authority to enact a good cause eviction bill. The New York Conference of Mayors confirmed that legal reasoning. Why would the city council continue to move forward with this proposal if the legal ability to do so is dubious at best? Landlords have struggled through the pandemic as much as anyone else, and they've been working with their tenants despite having their own income impacted by the state mandated moratoriums that have been in effect for almost 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. A gentleman there. We're just heading over. Yep.
Bernhard Liegel. I live in Newburgh. I used to live in Beacon. I'm one of these infamous landlords. I own 7 rental units in the city of Beacon. But even landlords get priced out of Beacon. So I know what it's about. We've heard a lot of good arguments tonight why this proposed law balances the interests of landlords and tenants. And I've read through the text. It seems well written, and the intent is definitely there to balance the interest. I can see that. What concerns me as a small landlord who has a day job to support himself, right? I don't live off rent. Is there's a lot of language on court and judges in here. And what concerns me as a landlord is every time I would need to go to court to defend my interest, I have to take a vacation day or pay a $4,000 retainer to an attorney to represent my interest. What this law does, to some degree, right, it's another barrier for me to serve the community, another thing I need to do on a day-to-day basis in order to provide services to my tenants. I don't mind cleaning out plumbing. I don't mind fixing electric and cleaning out the snow from the sidewalk. But if legal paperwork becomes a barrier for me to do this as a side business, then I will consider not just selling out. I get 2 calls a week from someone begging me to sell my buildings to. And I say, no, it works for me. I like being part of this community, serving it. But if I need to go to court in order to defend a rent increase, it's just not worth for me, being a landlord in this capacity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else we got in the back? Is it Tina?
Tina Bernstein, Rombout Avenue, Ward 2. I want to start out by clearing the air and reiterating some things that people have said. This legislation was not drafted to make landlords suffer. It was drafted to level the playing field, which right now is stacked against tenants. Eviction proceedings have always been a court proceeding. That's nothing new. People have always had to go to court. Tenants have to take off. They may not have funds. They have to appear in court just like a landlord. Landlords who are small landlords in our community are under the impression that somehow they will be victimized by this. And homeowners are afraid that this will affect them in some way. Actually, this is protection to level the playing field and protect against those predatory practices that make it impossible for small landlords to do right by their tenants. The other thing I want to reiterate, I've been working with Community Voices Heard. I've been talking to tenants. A lot of my fellow neighbors have been here tonight speaking. We have heard from people, single mothers, who are being forced out in the middle of a school year. We have heard from lifelong residents who are afraid they won't be able to stay here. Now, I'm a homeowner, but my kids grew up in Section 8 housing. I lived in apartments most of my life. And I was lucky enough, because the way our society is organized, I was able to inherit money and I was able to buy my first home. But I've lived in a lot of places. I've lived in East New York, Brooklyn. I've lived in Nassau County. I lived in Massachusetts. I lived in Louisville, Kentucky. And I came to Beacon because I value the kind of city that we have. The diversity of the city, mixed income, mixed racially, the sense of community that you heard everyone talk about. But what we've done as a city is we've failed our city because we've bailed out those big developers. We've gone in favor of attracting tourists and making big money in Beacon so that small landlords feel like they can't compete and people can't afford to live here. I don't want us to be known, as my friend Cherise said, do we want to be known as the city that drove people out of a certain demographic, or do we want to be known as a city that takes care of everyone? Everyone. And that everyone has a right to a home. That a woman who gets divorced in the middle of a school year and has limited funds doesn't have to take her kids out of school and go to another city because she doesn't have money. These are tenants who live in your community. And there are people that say, let's go slow. We've been talking about this since last summer. The cases are piling up. People are being evicted now. And my daughter lives in rent-stabilized housing in New York City. Her rent has gone up every year. When there were capital improvements, her rent went up. If there is some unusual cost and capital improvements that a landlord faces, that is just cause for raising the rent that can be considered above 5%. This is a straw argument. And we keep pitting, we keep showing this as if it's small landlords against tenants and tenants against landlords. And really what it's about is it's about the practices that we've had in Beacon for far too long that have made the city unaffordable and necessitate this kind of legislation to protect vulnerable people. And if we don't do this, then we will be known as a city that drove people out. It's already happened, and we will continue to drive people away. And I don't want to see that happen. I value living here, and I value the diversity of this community, and I want to be able to live with other people. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back. Is there anyone else after him in the public, in person? Okay.
I'm John Miller, 451 Main Street, Beacon. I'm a landlord in Beacon, and I have many properties where my tenants, I have actually had low rents for many, many years, and we have had a good relationship. Some of these people I've known for 5 and 6 years, the same tenants. But because of this law, it's caused me that I'm going to have to raise my rents because they are so low that with the tax increases in Beacon, if they keep going to the rate they're going, we as landlords will lose our buildings if we don't compensate for what this is happening. My feeling is it's not a problem for the landlords, it's a problem for Beacon. You should be having more low-income housing for our tenants that we can have. First of all, there is places as Dutchess Terrace, Davies Terrace. There's many low-income housing. We have Section 8 here. There is many programs for these people. The problem is you can't put it on the small landlords who have small properties. We have done everything in our power to keep our buildings in shape. I hear so many people talk about slumlords. We are not the slumlords. There's a lot of them out there. That's not us. And this doesn't affect us. But what you're going to do is going to affect us. And as people that live in this community, my family's 6 generations from here. They started out as immigrants. To have this town turn around and take what people worked their lives for and destroy it is a shame. They should turn around and make it where you can be, where the city can make more places for people. Just as the laws, we have our lawyers saying, this is not something that is going to be passed. They will not defend us if this happens. If this lawsuit happens, which it will, the landlords have already talked with lawyers, and this is something as me as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay. Everybody on this panel should pay it then because we don't want it. I think we should all work together for a common goal for all the tenants and the landlords so that we have peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yep.
I'll be really quick. I want to respond that we keep talking, or a number of people who are landlords and not huge landlords keep talking as if we're limiting their ability to increase rents for a whole variety of reasons. That is not what the law says. The law says if you have demonstrable increases in your expenses, you can raise the rent more than 5%. You just have to demonstrate it. That seems altogether fair. I don't know why that keeps being repeated, because it's not the case. Secondly, I want to say, yes, I agree. We should be doing a lot of other things around affordable housing. This does not replace the need to do many, many other things around affordable housing. But it's one thing we can do right now while we are in crisis to make things fairer for tenants. Thank you.
Thank you. So, hey, it's been a long evening, folks. Come on. We still have people online who want to speak. How do we want to work this, council? It's 9:45, and we're still on our first public hearing.
Can you repeat how many people are online right now?
You have 9.
9. I think we should keep going with hearing people. There might be other things on the agenda which we can either get through quickly or delay, but I feel like they've been waiting just as long as the people in person, so.
Okay. All right, let's start them up. I just asked for the people who still want to speak. Obviously, a lot of people have come before you, so, just be mindful of that, and let's go ahead.
The first Zoom speaker is Sheila Webb Halpern.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your attention tonight. I know it's late. I'll keep my remarks short. Excuse me for my voice. Since 2004, I've lived in 8 different rentals. And sometimes I had wonderful landowners, and sometimes I had landowners who are not very good. The one thing that was constant in all of those was that I was afraid. I was afraid to use my rights. I was afraid to ask questions. I was afraid to lose my home. Thankfully, I've been very lucky, and it's never cost me my life. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is what is the risk for all parties? One is the loss of a home, which can possibly turn into a life. That's a big risk. The other is an inconvenience. And I don't discount that inconvenience, but it's not a life. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
The next Zoom speaker is Scott Lehrman.
Hi, I'm Scott Lehrman. I live in Ward 4. I agree with what tonight's speakers have said about the need for affordable and stable housing. We need to do something now. But this law isn't the answer. It does nothing to make housing affordable. It won't lower rents. And state law enforced today already does not allow arbitrary evictions without cause or unsafe conditions. I'm also concerned that the council has dropped the exemption in the draft law for very small buildings that are not owner occupied. That's sure to harm some of Beacon's smallest properties and their tenants. If you pass this law, please put that exemption back in to protect small landlords that have 4 or fewer apartments that live in Beacon, people who actually live in Beacon, but don't happen to live in their small rental building. You can always add them in later if you actually have any data that is necessary. I also don't understand why this rent control law, and it is rent control, sets rent limits at an arbitrary 3.5%. That's 3.5%, not 5%, it was mentioned earlier. This is at a time when inflation is at 7.5%, and repair, maintenance, insurance, taxes, utilities, and other landlord costs are just out of control. Paying a lawyer to go to court and plead for fair latitude to deal with unexpected or rising costs often isn't a viable option. Those legal costs will eventually wind up in people's rents. What's going to happen if this law is passed? I don't believe the City Council actually knows. The Council has said it does not know how many tenants need this law, what kinds of buildings they live in, and even whether the proposed law is enforceable. Yet it seems ready to pass this new law. As was said earlier, the law will not stop evictions for non-payment of rent. Instead, let's build housing that is actually affordable. I do believe that if this passes, many landlords will never rent to someone whose finances are at all marginal and don't have incredible references. After all, a new tenant can stay forever, no matter what the lease says, unless they don't pay their rent or do something illegal. We need to make it easier, not harder, for people to get into affordable homes. And this is a real barrier, so let's not dismiss it. I believe that financially vulnerable small landlords, as we heard from some earlier, will raise rents every year to guard against unexpected costs that can't afford to go to court to litigate. This law sends every issue to courts that are expensive and really overburdened. Let's be real, big landlords will use attorneys who are already on retainer to do what they want anyway. I believe that just as it has in other parts of the world, this law will reduce the availability of rental housing. I also believe, as the mayor and city legal counsel and others have said, that just as in Albany, there will be lawsuits that will force our city to waste large sums of money to defend against and probably ultimately lose, money that can go to help tenants in need right now. If you insist on passing this law despite its flaws, at least exempt all small landlords, set increases in a way that's tied to inflation at a rate that is realistic given rising costs, and remove the forever lease clause, particularly when a building is being sold, because it is a taking if you can't sell a building without letting the leases run out. Better yet, let's actually subsidize and build affordable apartments. Let's directly subsidize the rents of people in need. Let's stop talking about how bad the problem is and saying this law will fix it when it won't. Let's actually sit down and figure out how to fix the problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
The next Zoom speaker is Dhruv Mehrotra.
Yeah, hi. My name is Dhruv Mehrotra. I'm calling on behalf of myself and Andrea Podab. We live in Ward 4. We've been living in Beacon for 5 years, and I'm calling to express our support for the good cause of eviction legislation. We were lucky enough to have purchased our house in 2019, but before that we were renting. We lived in that house, in the house next to the coal silo on Tyranda Ave before it was renovated. Our landlord at the time was great, but he sold the property while we were tenants. And at the time, we had no idea whether the new landlord was actually going to jack up our rent or simply just evict us for no reason. And that anxiety was really just terrible. Andrea's got a store on Main Street that over the years has employed several Beacon residents. And we've built a life here that we love, you know. This legislation would really help Beacon residents who are less fortunate than us, who aren't actually able to find stable, affordable housing. And if we want Beacon to grow equitably, it's necessary that we pass this legislation now. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next.
The next Zoom speaker is Eric Fretz.
Hi, Eric Fretz. I'm a Beacon homeowner on Davis Street. I've looked at the bill and I urge you to pass it. We've heard a lot from tenants and landlords here today. Most homeowners here are not landlords, and we don't want to see Beacon change to a high rent district and see our neighbors displaced and changing the character of the town, or raising the taxes on our homes because rental properties are worth more. In my years in Beacon, I've seen a lot of people leaving. I have children, other people who thought their children could live in Beacon, and now, like, the only way they can do that is that they stay at home as adults. Homeowners can get repossessed, foreclosed, but we have, if we don't pay our mortgages, but we have protections against arbitrary and unfair foreclosures. Residents who rent deserve the same kind of protections. I've heard a lot of testimony from tenants and tenant advocates. It's very convincing and very moving about stable, supportive community. I've also heard basically two main arguments from landlords. One is about, problem tenants and all the rest of that, but obviously, as a lot of people said, that's a small minority of tenants, that when it happens, good cause evictions doesn't stop dealing with that. And there's problems with going to court, but you go to court either way, with or without this. There's problems for the tenants and the landlords. If there's other ways to make that easier, great. But this bill does not cause that problem. It evens out the playing field. The other argument is really from the big predatory landlords who don't want any regulations to get in the way of their profit, it seems. Now, you could make the same argument for crack dealers, but it would be wrong. Their profits. There's no reason to be putting out Beacon residents on the street or excessively increasing rents to levels that are unaffordable for residents, even if there are some rich people who can come in and pay it. The smaller owner-occupied houses have a reason to bring a relative in, et cetera, but I don't think there's any reason to get rid of the exemption for small buildings that are not owner-occupied. People who own many buildings, it's the same as only one multi-unit building. And lastly, the rent increases in the bill. The limits on rent increases that are in the bill seems to make sense to me, and higher if necessary, if capital improvements justify it, and all that's there. It doesn't stop that. But if it's linked to rapidly rising market rate increase, then the whole bill is totally useless. Of course, this won't end all the problems. And yes, definitely we need to look at building more public housing and more affordable housing. Even examining rent controls or, an extension of the COVID-related moratoriums. And I think a lot of this should be done at the state level, not the city. And forcing the Airbnb things and maybe some kind of tenant-landlord council like other people have talked about. But nonetheless, this is a very useful bill on its own, and it's long overdue. Don't let the minority legal position be an excuse when this is passed in Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, and Albany, and seems to be working. And working on a statewide, there's a statewide level bill in the works. And don't let the money of big real estate, big predatory landlords stop you from doing the right thing for our community. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next Zoom speaker is Mary Hyatt.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Hi, so Mary Hyatt, I live in Ward 4. I'm not going to repeat everything that people have already said, but I just want to speak in support of the good cause eviction law, with particular focus on what I think are the two most important pieces of it, because they work together, and that's the part where you have to offer to renew a lease for a tenant where good cause does not exist, and the burden shifting really to the landlord to demonstrate the good cause. These are critically important. We've heard a lot of people talk about having to go to court and seeking legal representation and everything, but I think folks are really overlooking the fact that the issues exist now. Tenants often don't have the resources to go to court to actually assert their existing rights, right? They actually have existing rights, and it's very, very difficult to actually enforce those rights. Right now, if a landlord isn't holding up their side of the lease, they don't make repairs, they don't address other issues, they're harassing the tenant does not have to be afraid of their landlord evicting them if they assert those rights under the new law. Because under good cause eviction, when the landlord goes to court to seek the eviction order for the tenant that pays their rent, is not otherwise breaking some law, does not have good cause, the landlord can't evict them. So a tenant does not have to be afraid their landlord will not renew their lease, that they will find some ridiculous reason to try and evict them. They're sheltered from retaliation, so they're sheltered from losing their home. This is absolutely huge. Like, this is a massive shift in the power dynamic between landlords and tenants that is way overdue. At this point, any tenant that takes their landlord to court can have a lot of trouble renting in the future. So if you take your landlord to court, you successfully win, you could still lose your home because your landlord chooses not to renew your lease, and then you will have a lot of difficulty getting a new place if you have a court record of having sued your landlord. Landlords pay money, they do background checks on their tenants, they will know that you sued, they will know that you're a quote-unquote problem, and they won't rent to you. But under good cause eviction, because the tenants offered that new lease, they have an opportunity to stay where they live, to maintain their home, and they won't have to be fighting to find somewhere else. They won't be penalized just for asserting their actual legal rights. I fully support this law. It values health, safety, and well-being of renters where laws have not previously come with any teeth to protect those people. It treats them as human beings worthy of protection and security rather than prop up our current dehumanizing system that just values every dollar that could be wrung out of every tenant. Thank you. Please pass this law.
Thank you. Next.
The next Zoom speaker is Dara Silverman.
Hey there, this is Dara Silverman. I live in Ward 1, and I am a owner and a landlord. Before I moved to Beacon 10 years ago, I had never owned a property before, and for the first year that I lived in Beacon, I was a renter. And I felt lucky when I moved to Beacon that I found an affordable apartment, but what I didn't know was that there was standing sewage in the basement. And the smell of it made the tenants sick. And when we complained to the landlord said that they didn't have to do anything about it. And none of us knew our rights or knew what we could do to fight against that. So one of the reasons that I'm calling in tonight as a landlord is as a former tenant, because I know what it's like to be scared about losing your housing and to feel like you don't have rights. And I think what good cause does is it levels the playing field, as other speakers have said. We've heard a lot tonight about the forces of gentrification and how it's hurt both tenants, and I would also say landlords, because of the increase in our taxes, the increase in water, the increase in other bills. And as one of the co-founders of Mutual Aid Beacon, one of the things that we've noticed in recent months is that we've had many families that have broken up, and women who are now single who are taking care of their kids. And one of the biggest things that we're hearing from them is that housing insecurity is their biggest concern. Will they be able to stay in Beacon, and will they be able to keep their kids in school and provide that stability? So one of the things that this law does is allow for more of that stability. And, over the past 10 years that I've lived in Beacon, I've really seen us struggle with how to address development and how to protect both tenants and small landlords. And as a small landlord, I really think we should look at the example of Newburgh and Albany and Poughkeepsie, which have all passed this law, and which is actually seen as helping both tenants and small landlords and not big developers or the real estate association, which is really looking to make money. So I hear the concerns that other landlords have, and I really think this will level the playing field and will allow more protection for all of us, landlords and tenants. Thank you to the city councilors and the mayor for this dialogue, and I really hope you will pass the bill unamended tonight.
Thank you.
The next Zoom speaker is Nicolette.
Hi, my name is Nicolette Dakin. I live in Beacon Hills, so although I very much identify as Beaconite, I'm unfortunately not a Beacon voter, but I am here tonight to urge you to pass good cause eviction. We have heard already and seen already how escalating gentrification has been reshaping Beacon, destabilizing the community as people of color and working class folks have been pushed out. And as a tenant, I live in fear of my landlord. How many of us do not advocate for basic repairs and services out of fear that it will result in getting pushed out or having our rent increased when our lease comes up? How many of us watch the housing market with anxiety, wondering when housing prices are going to get so high that our landlords are going to decide it's just more profitable to kick us out and flip the place or to sell? How many of us stay up at night wondering if we're going to finally get the call that we're getting kicked out? We're also hearing a lot of misdirection and misinformation tonight. The law will not harm good landlords, and it certainly will not harm renters. And for those good landlords, you have nothing to fear from the law. And if you claim to be a good landlord and are here tonight warning that if the law passes, you will sell your building or that you will never rent again to someone who is not wealthy, then I think you need to reconsider what it means to be a good landlord. Tonight, we've heard from folks who are threatening the city with expensive lawsuits to try to avoid legislation that would cut into their profits. Is this really what being a good landlord looks like? I think we also need to consider privilege and relative risk at play here when we're considering the risk of a landlord's convenience and return on investment compared to the risk of tenants literally being pushed onto the street. We need to stop living in fear of imaginary lawsuits and protect the very real lives of tenants who are in peril. Housing is a human right. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
The next Zoom speaker is Emily Skydell.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, my name's Emily Skydell. I'm a former Beacon resident. I had to leave my living situation because of some roommate issues, but frankly, that didn't mean I had to just leave the house. I had to leave the entire city of Beacon because there was nowhere else to live. I lived in Beacon for a year. I uprooted my life in the city. I grew up in Westchester, was living in the city. I didn't grow up with money. My family, our house was foreclosed on when I was a kid. I rented, with roommates in Brooklyn in a tiny apartment, never had windows in my bedroom. Finally got to have windows in a bedroom in Beacon because I had a friend of a friend who had a room available in a house. And I had visited Beacon the year before and just fell in love with it. I thought, oh, this is a place that's filled with progressive people. There's this creative arts community, so it seems. That's the way that people always talk about it to me even now. And it really kind of, I hate to say it, but I feel really sour about Beacon now. And I'm probably not the only person floating around the state and the country who's maybe lived in Beacon at some point and now feels a sour taste in their mouth for Beacon. Because Beacon was not, it was not a place that I could stay. I started to feel at home there, and when I had to look for another place to live, there was not a place that existed for me to live. I could not afford to live there. And that's really sad. And, I'm just one person. I've had to sort of couch surf since then. And I'm 30 and I have a full-time job, and I'm a community organizer. I'm an artist. I don't think that Beacon is supposed to be a place that spits people like me out. I'd like to believe that the Beacon that I thought I was moving to still exists somewhere in some kernel. And I really hope that the City Council takes everything that everybody has said tonight and passes good cause eviction, and then maybe takes some of the advice of these real estate people that keep talking about all these other things that need to happen in Beacon to make it more affordable. Like, hell yeah, rent control, hell yeah, affordable housing, build more affordable housing. Like, I don't think any of those people are putting out any kind of policies and pushing anything. They're just saying that. They're saying that in one breath, and then in the next, telling you not to pass the one, kind of rational, pragmatic law that's on your desk around affordable housing. So I wouldn't really take, the kind of empathetic appeal seriously from the people that are against good cause eviction. I don't have anything, smarter than what anyone has already said to say. I don't have any other facts, but all I can say is that I hope that you do the right thing, and I can only imagine the thousands of people all around the Hudson Valley and you know, out of state, around the country, that got kicked out of Beacon too, and would have loved to also voice their support for this if they were still part of the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
The next Zoom speaker is S.E. Casey.
Hi, I'm a small landlord in Ward 1, and I want to say that this law is not a threat to me. I care about this because for the majority of my life I've been a tenant, and I would have benefited greatly from these protections. I love my neighbors, I want them to stay, and I want them to be able to live in the community that they work in. So I urge the City Council to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Got any
Next
others?
Zoom speaker is Linda Codega.
Hi there. I don't have anything super insightful to say. I think there was a lot said earlier about good cause eviction that expresses my views in support of this new law. I think that as a renter in Beacon, I'm facing down a lot of pretty real problems where I'm looking at moving out probably next year just because I can't afford the rent on my place anymore. And I can't afford rent anywhere else, especially not in town, which is a huge bummer. I love living here and I love the community here, and I wish I could stay, but it's becoming really untenable for me. And I've lived in the Hudson Valley since 2012, and I've lived in Beacon about 4 or 5 years. So it's just really very upsetting that there's just not a lot of protections for me as a renter. So I urge you to pass good cause eviction tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben?
There's one more. You have one more.
Okay.
2 more.
Ben?
Sorry, there is one further speaker at this time, and that's Sarah Alpert.
Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Sarah Alford. I am super thankful that this hearing is still going. I didn't think I was going to make it because I was teaching tonight, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the mayor, city council, and everyone that spoke before me. I think a lot of people probably have talked about the facts of the law, and I just want to talk a little bit about what this law would mean to me. I've lived in Beacon for almost 5 years now, and I'm a renter in Ward 3. And my apartment isn't just my apartment, it's my home. It is where I've built community. It is where I've built friends that feel like family. It's where I spend my time during the pandemic every single day. It really feels like my home, and I don't want to leave that just on a whim. If there's a good reason that my landlord needs to raise my rent, or a good reason that he needs me to leave this place, I'm happy to do that. But I don't want that to be without cause, and I don't want that to be unreasonable. And I want to have my rights as to be considered in that. And I also want to say, just because my landlord has been a gracious landlord that hasn't raised rents deeply since moving to the community, because as many people have said previously, if I was to move here today, I would not be able to, does not mean that I don't feel fear almost every day that I'm gonna lose my home. I feel very fearful to express concerns when there's an issue with my apartment, because I don't want to be a problematic tenant. And I've gone over a year at times without listing what the issues are. And when I do, it's I'm reminded that I'm paid below market rent. And I don't want to have to live in fear and anxiety that I do now. And this law would dramatically change that, would allow me to feel comfortable, would allow me to come forward and express concerns about my apartment to the landlord whose responsibility it is. And I worry that other people are being silent in the same way and are in dangerous situations that their house isn't being maintained. So I just want to urge City Council and the mayor to pass this, that this is people's well-being at stake, including my own. And just want to thank you all for hearing everybody. And I want to thank this community for having such a meaningful dialogue around this. It's one of the reasons why I love living here. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are we set?
We have 2 more with hands raised at this time.
Okay. All right,
The
let's
next
get it
Zoom
over with.
speaker is
Come on.
Steve Bone.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
You came back.
I never left. I'd like to, well, I'm
All
not
right,
going to
but
apologize.
you've been having more fun than we have. Come on.
Steve, you get 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to apologize, but I think I'm glad that I was outside, came in with a wet dog, had raised my hand too early, and saw my computer said, "You need to speak right now," and I had no idea what was going on. So, apologies for that. I want to speak in support of good cause eviction, and everyone has said all the things I could possibly say tonight, but what I do want to point out is a few words that have been coming up a lot. The word community, which is my favorite thing about living in Beacon. I'm a homeowner here. I've been here for a little over a year, but I've never had a community like this. I've lived in a lot of different places, and I've never really experienced a place like this, which is what drew me to move here and buy my first home and settle down here. And, you know, I recently got a dog as well, and I walk the dog every day, 3 times a day, and the amount of people I have met walking that dog, it's astounding. I talk to a lot of people, and it's a really wonderful place to live. I think we can all agree there are a lot of things we love about living here, which is why we're all on this call till 10:15. Other words that are coming up a lot: stability and fear. I was a renter for 14 years. At worst, my landlord wrongfully evicted us and raised the rent by, I think, 30 or 40%. It was an astonishing amount of money. They just made up a reason to get rid of us and raise the rent. The best landlord I ever had didn't flip. I lost power in my apartment. It took her 3 days to go down to the basement and flip the circuit breaker because she just couldn't get around to it. She was the best landlord I ever had. I know there are great landlords out there, and she was awesome, but you are powerless in a lot of ways as a renter. I mean, it's in the name, landlord. I'm thinking about language here. To have your home be not a stable thing for you is the most terrifying thing you can have in your life. That short period of time where all of a sudden I had to find a new apartment with no notice. I mean, one landlord mentioned needing to take a day off to go into court. Well, what if you have to take many days off to find a new place to live? I mean, it's an awful experience, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And the other word that I want to point out that everyone has been saying is luck. The reason I was able to afford to buy a home in this city is luck. And if I said it were anything else, I'd be lying to you all. Yes, I worked very hard, but so many things in my life have made me fortunate enough to be in this position, and a lot of people are not. The least we could do is try to give them some support in having stable housing. That's all I had to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there one
Mayor,
more?
we have one more Zoom speaker with their hands raised, and that's Sam Stein.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thanks for the opportunity to testify tonight. My name is Sam Stein, and I'm a senior policy analyst at the Community Service Society of New York. We're located in New York City, but we have a long record of researching and advocating for expanded tenant protections and affordable housing throughout the state. For example, in our 2021 county-by-county data analysis called Why New York Needs Good Cause Eviction, we found that of Dutchess County's nearly 34,000 rental households, approximately 68%, or over 23,000 households, would be covered by the version of good cause introduced in Albany as a statewide bill. Good cause is ultimately a simple proposal. When a lease expires, a tenant in good standing should not have to wonder whether the landlord will force them out. The benefits to renters are clear. With good cause, they have stability, security, and legal protections against arbitrary rent hikes and displacement. But there are also many benefits to passing good cause that are felt by the community as a whole. First, good cause will help tenants assert their legal rights to safe housing conditions and fair treatment from their landlord. If they're experiencing housing hazards such as chipping paint, leaks, mold, vermin, they can discuss the problem with their landlord or report the problem to the authorities without fear of retaliation in the form of a no-cause eviction. This will result in better health and safety for individual tenants and stability for the larger community. Second, establishing good cause eviction protections can also help defend tenants' civil and political rights. Without meaningful eviction protections, a tenant who might otherwise be interested in joining with others to engage in the political system on behalf of renters might feel vulnerable to landlord retaliation. Good cause therefore increases renters' capacity to fully participate in activism and local democracy. Third, establishing good cause eviction protections will reward Beacon's responsible property owners while disincentivizing real estate companies with ill intent from buying properties in this area. As we all know, there are real estate firms that buy properties under the assumption they can evict the current tenants, raise the rent substantially, then either sell to a new owner or pull equity out of the building through mortgage refinancing. This kind of speculative behavior is far harder to pull off in areas with good cause eviction protections, thus taking the market advantage away from predatory actors and placing it with more responsible landlords. Finally, preventing evictions can have tremendous impacts on the life chances of renter households, which can scale up as we think about establishing citywide protections. An eviction can throw a family's life into chaos. It can cause ill health. It can distract from school and work, leading to further disruptions like suspensions and firings. It can even prevent a household from finding other housing and can therefore lead to homelessness. Actions like good cause can create stability and an upward trajectory for both the families affected and for Beacon as a whole. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. The Community Service Society strongly supports the proposed good cause legislation and encourages the council to approve it.
Thank you. Okay,
That's the last speaker online.
all right. So, council, what do you want to do with the public hearing?
I propose we keep it open until March 7th. There's a lot to digest in here.
Okay, so there's a motion to,
A motion to keep the public hearing open till March 7th.
all right, and a second?
Second.
All right.
Remind me, does this mean we can discuss it next week and make changes to it?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it does,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
That
Yes,
was
I think it's similar to what we're going to do with the other one. We had the public hearing.
we did.
Absolutely, and that's standard procedure for most local laws, besides like the stop sign ones. You usually don't vote on them in the same meeting. You have a workshop, and then we can talk about the comments raised, make edits, and do whatever the city council wants
So
at that
if
time.
we make edits, do we have to have another public hearing on the edited version, or would we then just vote on the edited version?
So the motion was to adjourn the public hearing till March 7th, at which time the local law will be updated, and it'll be the revised copy. The law needs to be in its final form for 10 days. So if you make substantive changes at the next public hearing, if you make substantive changes at the next workshop, and then you have the hearing on March 7th, you won't be able to adopt it on March 7th because it hasn't been 10 days. So let's say you do the workshop, you say, we'd like to revise the law in this way. Even if I work through the night on Monday and get it to you on Tuesday, it still won't be 10 days, and the law requires 10 days.
Well, then let me ask the council, do you feel like this law, after this public hearing we've had so far, needs substantive changes?
And you can still, I'm sorry, Justice, if I may, if you you adjourn the public hearing, you workshop it next week, and the city council can discuss all the comments and decide next week, we don't want to make any substantive changes. Maybe there's a couple minor tweaks to the law, at which point, because no substantive changes were made at the workshop, you can vote on it March 7th. So it really, this doesn't stop you from talking about it next week. It's just if at next week's workshop you have substantive changes, it will, you do have that 10-day requirement, unfortunately.
And who determines what's substantive?
We'll look at what the changes are.
Right. But it's interpreted as to whether is substantive or not.
That's correct.
Can you tell us in the moment as we're having the discussion,
Yeah,
if you
we
say
will-
like, hey,
we
this
will-
is a substantive change?
Yes, we
Okay.
will not spring that on you on March 7th to say, by the way, can't adopt it. We will talk about it at the workshop and let you know what is deemed substantive and what is not substantive. Because I think that's a big part of your decision as well.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing to March 7th. Everybody okay with that? Everyone say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
I'm also would like to continue the discussion in this meeting with the potential to vote tonight. I didn't hear anything in this hearing that changed my mind enough to say that I would change anything substantial in this law. But I also recognize that if my other council members need more time to digest what we heard, I want to give you, obviously, the space that you requested to do that.
Okay. Everybody good? All right. So the next item is reports. I'll start. I'm done. Next.
I'll go
It's a
next.
long
I'm
evening.
done.
All right, 2 done.
The one thing I'd say, we also brought up in our general public comment, the idea of what our rules for public comments are, which you all brilliantly demonstrated today. We are actually scheduled to talk about that at our next workshop. So if that's something you have thoughts about, you're welcome to listen in and share anything over email or phone call beforehand. Otherwise, I'm done.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Yeah, it's been a long night. I'll keep it short. COVID tests. If anybody needs COVID tests, mutual aid has gotten a lot, and I've set up a scheduling app so that you can pick them up in Beacon at any time, well, at any of the times available. So if you go to calendly.com/Beacon free tests, or how about just if you visit my link tree, it's linktr.ee/justice for Beacon. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm tired.
Justice, will send it to us. We'll post it on the website.
Yes, you can get free COVID tests. There's so many. If you have my number, you could just ask me to. Message me on any social media. If you need a free COVID test kit, there are plenty. And I'm going to pass it to George.
You can also call the mutual aid dispatch number, which is 845-288-2559.
All right, George.
Pass.
All right. Paloma.
Sorry. I heard you already speak. Sorry, that was confusing. I spoke out of turn. I just wanted to thank everybody who came out to the Beacon Spring event this past weekend. We heard again tonight how wonderful it is to spend time with each other and celebrate Beacon. And I look forward to going to the St. Patrick's Day Parade next. I also wanted to note that Mutual Aid Beacon's food distribution schedule has changed. So if you're looking for food on Wednesday mornings at Memorial Park, it is now only the 3rd Wednesday of every month. And if you need additional resources, please call that dispatch number again. We also have the tiny food pantries. And by we, I mean the community also has the tiny food pantries at the rec center and Binnacle Books, as well as community fridges there, and the one in the laundry room at Tompkins Terrace. Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback on good cause eviction.
All right. That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Well, I'm afraid I'm not going to go quickly.
I just cut you off, you know. Go ahead.
Cut the mic. The stuff that I prepared for my remarks, I'll pass on, but I did promise that I would read a remark on behalf of somebody else. Just quickly, I want to say thank you to everybody who's contributed to this conversation over the last few months. We've been talking about it for 6 months, and I've gotten so many perspectives. The vast majority of folks that I've been speaking to on the phone at length with are small landlords and real estate agents, and most of those conversations have been really productive, have helped me gain new insights into this law. And further, most of the conversations usually ends with someone saying, the person I'm speaking to saying, "Oh, that doesn't sound so bad after all," once they actually hear the details of good cause eviction. But I wanted to share again that I'll be hosting office hours on March 12th from noon to 2 p.m. at Trax at 1 East Main, sorry. So if you have anything that you'd like to say to me or discuss with me that you don't want to in public or by email, please drop by and have a cup of coffee with me. I promised that I would read a letter. I heard from Yvette Valdez-Smith, who's the minority leader of the Dutchess County Legislature, former Beacon resident and representative of District 16, which includes Ward 4 of Beacon, who couldn't make it tonight because she was called into a last-minute meeting, but did want to provide the following. To whom it may concern, I would like to thank Mayor Lee Kiriakou and the entire Beacon City Council for listening to this public hearing this evening. Their hard work and dedication is formidable, and my family and I are grateful for it. Beacon is an incredible community that deserves representatives that care and listen, and I believe that is exactly what will happen here. I am the county legislator of District 16 and proudly represent the people of Fishkill and Beacon. I am also a wife, mother, daughter, teacher, and friend who loves her community, and I've ran for office to make sure that all of us are represented equitably and fairly, and that all voices are heard. My family and I rented in Beacon for many years prior to becoming homeowners. We know that what a struggle it is to manage a household budget and pay rent. It was difficult for us, as it is for a lot of our population. Tenants need to be protected, and I stand firmly behind good cause eviction. It is time we spoke up for what is a right. Housing is a basic human right. The New York State eviction moratorium has ended, and people are in jeopardy of losing their homes now. There is no time to delay. There is a lot of misinformation regarding good cause eviction, and it is times like these in which we must speak up and clarify false information. Good cause eviction will strengthen our community. It will not hurt small and responsible landlords. This is clearly outlined within good cause eviction. However, it will protect working families, people of color, the elderly, and those on fixed incomes. We claim to care about this in our beloved Beacon. Let's act like it. I have been contacted by many of my constituents about good cause eviction. They have come to me with their own stories about outrageous rent increases, unlawful evictions, and irresponsible landlords. And more of us have stories of losing neighbors due to exorbitant rent increases. Our housing market has skyrocketed locally, but our incomes have not. The pandemic has only brought this inequity into sharper focus. This is not the community we claim and aim to build. The stability of our community and the protection of those most at risk is not an insignificant problem. Good cause eviction will help protect tenants' rights. However, I would be remiss in saying that it is perfect. There is still a provision about market changes in the law being an allowable reason for a rent increase of greater than 5%. This must be taken out because it is the reason that we have this problem in the first place. Landlords and developers see how desirable our area has become and have raised rents at this rate, which is unmanageable and unjust, and not in the spirit of what good cause aims to do. I have faith that our representatives will be able to rectify this issue in the law. Good cause eviction will help protect Beacon residents. It will protect what we know and love about Beacon. I encourage you to support this now. Proudly serving the people of Fishkill and Beacon, Yvette Valdez-Smith. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Guess we got a few things to do. What's that?
Resolutions, right?
Yeah. Okay. We have 4 resolutions that Chris is going to run us through.
All right.
The first one is to execute an agreement with Weston and Sampson, and that's for a community facility and program report.
Yeah, we discussed this at last week's workshop. We had put out an RFP for a firm to be the consultant on our recreation study. We had 2 responses, and our recreation director has proposed we go with Weston and Sampson for a contract in the amount of $48,900.
Okay, can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
I think that was Ren and Molly. Any discussion?
Do we know when that first meeting is going to be with them, assuming that we pass this tonight?
No, we don't. We have to pass this, get under contract, and then we'll set up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a contract even yet. We're working on that with them.
Got it.
You might not know the answer to this question either, Chris, but I was rereading it. I was wondering if Phase 1, the assessment of what the inventory, is done concurrently with Phase 2, which is creating the needs assessment, or if we're going to do the inventory first.
No, it's
and then move
linear.
on. Linear. Okay.
And it builds off the 2017 rec fee study that we did. So it's basically to confirm and expand upon that 2017 study so we have a base of knowledge to go off of. And then the needs assessment is the second part to figure out where the gaps are. And then those 2 pieces are incorporated in the output, which is the community facility and program report.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
There's There's one down. Okay, the next one is authorizing that same person, the city administrator, to execute a sewer tenancy agreement with WSH Realty Corp. And Healy Chrysler Dodge Jeep. Get a motion in a second?
Motion?
Second.
Molly and George? Chris?
Again, we talked about this in workshop last week. There's a property at 557 Fishkill Avenue, which is the Healy Chrysler Dodge Jeep facility, and they are not in a sewer district and want to hook up to the City of Beacon sewer for a maximum input of 2,000 gallons per day, which is a very small amount on our 6 million gallon per day capacity. Again, it's about $10,000 a year in revenues to the city because they pay twice the rate that a Beacon resident would. So this enables them to hook in. They pay all the fees for the mains, the pump station, and any of the hookup fees. And it's with the owner of the property and the entity that's leasing the property. I'm done, Mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
2 down.
All right.
All right, next one is the dedication of River Ridge Sidewalk and Stairway. That's the one on 9D, just past the church. Get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, that was Justice and Paloma.
I think it was Ren.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So this is accepting the dedication of a sidewalk, stairway, and lighting from River Ridge View Homeowner Association. We are already maintaining this, and as part of the development, they built out a sidewalk and stairway from Walcott Avenue, 9D, to Ferry Street. Our engineer has reviewed the as-built plans. We've inspected the facility, and we're ready to accept dedication of that. And it's going to be similar for the next one, too. But we broke it into two pieces.
All right, so 39 is the stairway.
39 is the sidewalk and stairway.
Okay, and then,
And the lighting that goes with it. And then the next one is for sewer and water mains.
right, and that's the one where the homeowners still have from the main to the home.
Right.
But we're accepting the mains.
Right, so in 39, you're accepting from the River Ridge Homeowners Association. On the other one, it's River Ridge Views LLC and the homeowners.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so on 39, which is the one on the sidewalk, the stairway, and the lighting that goes with it, any further discussion?
I just want to say that I personally love that stairway. It makes getting to the train so much easier. And I know
cool.
a lot of people in my ward feel the same way, so.
So.
That was Lee's stairwell.
That's right. Dan, are you taking the train in the morning?
Yes.
All right, so come by the house, we'll walk down the stairs together at some ridiculous hour in the morning.
It's a ridiculous hour
to catch
in
the
the morning.
626, right?
And if you're
I know.
nostalgic for it, we can run a rope through the woods.
There you go.
You have no idea how many years that's been in the making. I think it's
Long
25.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful.
Yeah. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, anyone opposed? Very good. Now let's do 40. Can I get a motion and a second on the same facility, but the water and sewer mains?
Motion.
Second.
Molly and Dan. Any further discussion on that one? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? The next one is authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to amend the existing sales tax agreement and to execute a new sales tax agreement with the city of Poughkeepsie and the county of Dutchess. Can I get a motion and a second? That was Dan.
Second.
And Ren. I'm going to tell you about this. There's nobody left out there, but
Nobody? What are you talking about?
Very
I'm so
important
sorry.
constituents.
Our most loyal customers are here. Mayor.
Absolutely, without question. So, this is background. The agreement that you have to do with the cities and the county, because under state law, cities have the ability to impose their own sales tax. And so in lieu of imposing a city imposing its own sales tax, it typically makes an agreement with the county. That agreement has to be approved by the two cities and the county, including its legislature. And we have an arrangement that is truly a win-win-win for the county, the city, and the other municipalities in the county. So in this agreement, all parties will grow sales tax revenue every year. All will share equally in sales tax growth, which has been actually the problem with the current deal. There was rapid consensus among the executives and the finance staff once we could agree on common data. There was a shared viewpoint as to the concerns with the expiring agreement and how to solve them, and that again centered around the growth factor, not the first year hit, but the ones after that. The county generously is reducing its share over time to restore the cities onto the right revenue sharing path. The towns will continue to enjoy sizable sales tax growth. Poughkeepsie, our other city, which is in a different financial position than we are, they're actually considered by the state controller the most, what's the term, stressed?
Fiscally stressed.
Fiscally stressed city in the state that has a sizable negative fund balance. Poughkeepsie will be able to take an upfront payment, which is a unique circumstance, and then the county executive and the two mayors will all laud the process and the professionalism and the partnership in getting this done. So let me just tell you quickly, the deal that we had originally, and we are the first community going through this in the public, so I'm just trying to provide enough data. We originally renegotiated this agreement in 2012 for the first year to take effect in 2013. At the time, the county was under significant financial stress and felt obliged to take a piece of the sales tax revenue back to the county. As a result, the city of Beacon lost $1 million of $5 million going from 2012 to 2013. The city of Poughkeepsie lost about $1.5 million and then lost additional in the second year. So their loss was spread over 2 years. And then the towns also took a reduction as well in that year. So the county took that because they felt they were under stress and needed to do that. Obviously, the cities and the towns weren't happy about it, but it did pass. The hard part was not the first year. The hard part was actually the growth factor thereafter. The growth factor thereafter provided a lower growth rate to the cities than to the rest of the county. So in other words, if sales tax revenue in the county grew at 5% in a year, the growth would be shared, but Beacon and Poughkeepsie would get less than that 5%. And that was viewed as unintentional once it was pointed out. And the way it had to be measured was as a percentage. When you look at it in dollar terms, everybody grew in that year after. But the question was at what rate? And when it was obvious that the city, because of the way the growth factor was defined in the last agreement, the two cities were getting a lower and lower share of that total revenue. Our example was in the last year of the old deal, 2012, Beacon's share of sales tax revenue was over 3% of the county total. By this year, which is the last year of the current deal, it's down to 2%. Okay? And again, we grew every year, but the point was that we were getting a lower share. That was viewed as unintentional. Once everyone saw that, everyone could quickly come to terms, and we're coming to a deal that it actually will be measuring not dollar amounts, not a growth factor, but each community and the towns collectively will be getting a share of sales tax revenue going forward. What that means is that we benefit in the upside, right? If county sales tax revenue go up 5%, ours will go up 5%. We suffer on the downside. If total sales tax revenue goes down 5%, we will too. That's different than the current deal. The current deal had a guarantee or a floor, which we could not go below. In so doing, we set up that odd arrangement in terms of the growth factor. Right now, our share of sales tax revenue is right around 2%. In year one, meaning 2023, that's the first year of the new agreement, it will be at 2.35%. What that means is the estimate is just over $1 million that we will gain in additional sales tax revenue in year one, all right? And it will continue to grow after that. There will be 2 additional bumps above that 2.35% that will get us, by the end of this agreement, around 2.6%, which puts us slightly more than halfway between where we were in the old deal and where we ended up in the last year of this deal. which is coming in the middle, right? In fact, slightly better than the middle. So what that means is not only do we get the $1 million in year one, but we are on the same growth path as everyone else thereafter, and in 2026, there is an additional 4% that we get in that year because of the extra percentage bump, and then in 2030, there's another almost $1 million bump, or $750,000 bump, all right? So it's a very attractive arrangement. We could get there because everybody understood when we shared the data that the cities had been disadvantaged by the growth factor. The county was very generous in saying, okay, we will get you there, but you got to let us do it over time. By allowing this to happen over time, all the parties will grow every single year, including the county, right? So they're not giving up a negative, they're not turning it into a negative number. It's a positive number every single year. The advantage for Poughkeepsie, again, they were in a negative fund balance, we were in a positive fund balance. The city of Poughkeepsie will get a one-time $3 million upfront payment in this year.
Yes.
In 2022.
And that's why you're amending the existing sales tax agreement.
In addition to doing the new one.
Correct.
Right, so the last year of this deal, Poughkeepsie will get an extra $3 million if everyone approves it, which will be financed by a $300,000 a year reduction for 10 years in the new agreement, right? So
For Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
for Poughkeepsie only.
Without interest.
And it's basically, you can't call it a loan, you can't call it whatever.
It's like a forward.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
It's a upfront payment.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, it's obviously up to the city of Poughkeepsie, they're going to put it immediately to retire a substantial portion of their negative fund balance, which I think is a huge win for them.
Yeah.
And so that's the basics. As it affects us, the summary version of it is year one, over $1 million additional dollars in sales tax revenue. Just for you to understand, $1 million, that's actually about $1.1 million, and that is almost exactly 10% of our property tax base. Okay, because we raise about 11, or are we up to 12?
11 and change.
Yeah, 11 million is the property tax portion of the city general fund budget. So this is in effect a 10% benefit in terms of our property tax revenue in total. And just to put it in perspective, our current sales tax revenue is 4.8 million or so, and it's going to take it up to close to 6. And the sales tax revenue is the second most important component of our revenue stream.
Right.
Sales, property tax, about half of our general fund revenues for our general fund portion. So that's not sewer and not water, because those are paid by fees. And then the sales tax revenue is about half that size as well. It used to be less than that. It will now be slightly more than half of our property tax revenue. So it's an important source of revenue. It will grow at a rate that is more like 4% a year. That's the projection. Obviously, there's no guarantee, but given that we are trying to keep under the property tax cap, which is usually 2 to 3% a year, it's a preferred source of revenue. All right, so that's the summary version of it. Any questions?
Will the details or the sort of spreadsheet that I peek over there, or any version of it, be made available to the public? I understand we probably didn't share that before we shared the agreement with the public.
The percentages are in the agreement.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're at liberty to, that was a negotiating document. It is.
It's easily calculated, right? All you got to know is the county thinks sales tax revenue will go 4% a year, and once you see the percentages and today's rate, you can build a sheet yourself, right? It's very straightforward. And the percentages are the part that matter, right? Because again, our percentage had dropped to around 2%. It's now going to bump to 2.35. It'll bump again to 2.45 3 years out, and then it'll bump again to 2.62 4 years after that. Okay?
But we're never guaranteed.
No guarantees.
No guarantees. And I do remember in the previous agreement, there were times, knowing that we had a guarantee, we were able to budget, knowing that it was $600,000 or whatever it was.
Yep.
So that's the risk that we that we gained.
In the course of that agreement, I don't think there was a single year we would have lost sales tax under this
Under
new
this kind of
agreement.
agreement, yeah.
We
I guess
wouldn't
it
have
was
gone
just a
below
known-
that
It was just a
floor,
known.
rather.
We didn't know what the sales tax was going to be, but we're budgeting for an unknown number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And-
right.
And we can make conservative assumptions as we go forward on revenues.
Right.
You know, take a 3-year.
I think that was during the worst of the recession.
Yeah.
Possibly that's when we were really
It was, in
concerned.
fact.
Yeah,
And I think it was the one time you would worry, is it going to get worse?
Yeah.
But, we talked to Susan Tucker, and, it's as Chris said, every single year, we never got anywhere near the base guarantee, right?
Yeah, in fact, under this past year, we would have done really well because the sales tax growth piece was quite large. And again, we didn't get as big a piece of that as we would under this new deal. And I just want to highlight, I want to thank our colleagues in Poughkeepsie who worked hand in hand with us. The finance director, Dr. Brian Martinez, and Mayor Rob Rollison. Lee took a clear leadership role in developing the data and pushing this through. So thank you, because this was above my spreadsheet skills. And I also want to thank County Executive Molinaro and his deputy, Bill O'Neill, who really did come to the table and worked with us. I think nobody got everything they wanted, but that's usually what a good deal ends up being, a good compromise. And everybody gets enough that it's worth it for them to do it.
We are the first community to approve it. It has to be approved by the city of Poughkeepsie as well, and then also by the county legislature.
And then approved by the state comptroller.
Oh, right, that's right. Okay. For those who were around the last go-around, it was tough. Right, you were here, right? Yeah. And it was a big loss of revenue. It was a significant tax increase that year, and it was on top of the year before, where there's also a significant tax increase, not because of the sales tax revenue, but because of the recession we were in the midst of. So this is going to afford us the opportunity to think longer views. I'm hoping, obviously the council's up to the council, but I'm hoping that we focus this additional revenue to support bonding and long-term capital. So.
And balanced budgets. We've been going into fund balance the last 2 years. So we need to have a balanced operating fund.
All right, so the city administrator says we can't also run down our fund balance. Okay.
Thank you.
Agreed. Okay. So all in all, a very good news story. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, so we're looking for authority. Oh, I have to sign this thing too, the mayor and the city administrator to amend the existing sales tax agreement. That's dealing with that one-time payment. And then also to execute the new sales tax agreement that puts into place the numbers that I talked you through.
And I don't know, I didn't run this by Drew, but do you want to do a voice vote on this just in case the comptroller asks?
I think that'll create the best record going forward.
Yeah.
All right, so you want a roll call?
Yes,
A
I would
roll
like
call.
a
That's what I meant. I'm
recommend a
sorry.
roll
Are
call.
we ready for that?
Just a question, even though we're redoing it, but it's a minor thing, but it lists the address of City Hall as being on Main Street in this.
On the
473 Main Street.
You met in that building, didn't you?
I do recall that building.
I like that building.
That was a nicer building, I
Very
think.
60s or like. It's the one next to Mace Hook and Ladder. It looks
Okay.
like a municipal building built in the 60s. That's
Thank you,
exactly what
George.
it is.
We'll amend it.
Yeah. All right.
I don't think it's material to the contract, but
I don't think so, but maybe.
very
you know how
sloppy of
lawyers
us
are,
to have
you know.
missed it. We're going to put one thing in every week that you all have to find.
It's like an
And you get a little
Easter egg.
prize, yeah.
All right, let's, Dan, you want to start?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
George?
Yes.
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 And I will also vote yes. So, one down.
Congratulations, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, well
Took some doing. As I said, once everyone agreed on the numbers, everybody came to the table. It was really good. So I
And if
give a
you
lot of
do,
credit.
if you do hear from people in Poughkeepsie or on the county legislature, please convey that we strongly support this agreement. And now they need to pass it.
Right. Okay. One more.
Stop signs now.
Setting a public hearing on adding stop signs. All right. I need a motion and a second to set a public hearing.
Motion?
Second. All right. That sounded like Molly and Dan. And is this for a particular meeting? Is it for the 7th? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's for
the
March 7th.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I need a motion to approve the minutes of February 7th.
Motion.
All right. Second. That was Ren and Dan.
I found a typo.
Oh, you get an award.
Yes, Justice's name is spelled incorrectly at the top.
And he didn't notice.
And I had a question which we can defer to later, but before I forget, I'm curious how public comment is quote-unquote recorded into the record. I noticed we did get an email from a constituent a couple of weeks ago wanting to be able to submit public comment via email or letter if they were not able to attend in person. I do recall this being something that was allowed at one point. And I just want to clarify procedurally what that means and what that looks like. Presumably minutes do not reflect public comment, or at least they don't seem to. But I'm curious where that information lives and if we can procedurally
We've
add
usually
letters.
appended it to the minutes because the rest is on record with our video.
Got it. So it would be basically added as an attachment to the minutes.
Yes.
And, okay, got it.
Yeah, and I don't recall what came in 2 weeks ago. Sometimes it's hard to decipher what it is that's coming in, and so if it's helpful to say, I'd like this to be added to the meeting record.
Yeah, I haven't seen, no, go ahead.
Usually what I used to do was I would write to Colin and say, could you please include this for the comments for the public hearing, public record, whatever. Like tonight, I just forwarded the comment from Yvette to Ben to include in the...
Right. Yeah, I hadn't received an email that was asking for that email to be put into public comment, but the email was asking about the procedure if they wanted.
Yeah, they can just send it to Ben.
Got it.
To Ben Swanson.
Thank you.
Okay. So the Air Awards Memorial Award will go to Paloma for this set of minutes. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. There's actually a second opportunity for public comments for anyone who hasn't spoken at the first opportunity for public comments. Ben, is there anyone out there? The ones here in the public?
No hands up.
All right, so there's no hands up, and the parties still here have spoken previously. So otherwise, do we need the executive session?
No.
All right, so we will skip the executive session. I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right, so that was Justice and George. All in favor? Aye. I'll see you on the 626. Okay.
That was.
What's that?